Tame.
The court made it clear that trial will start on the set date regardless of the pending outcome on an application by Mr. Mdluli compelling his former employer to pay for his legal fees. The three are facing charges of corruption, fraud and theft relating to the police's secret slush fund, which they allegedly stole for personal use.
Disgruntled former post office employees say despite several follow-ups with the post office, they have not received their severance packages. 5,000 workers were retrenched from the cash-strapped state entity in April. The retrenched employees say they can no longer provide for their families. One of the retrenched employees, Oma Mabua, says she can't afford to buy food for her children.
This issue is affecting me a lot because I no longer have an income. I have 2 children that I have to take care of. I don't even have a cent to send them to school or even food. I am always at home. There's nowhere I can go since I have no one to assist me.
Meanwhile, Post Office Joint Business Rescue Practitioner Louise Brugman says workers can expect their first payment of 3 payments this week.
Post Office's business rescue practitioners have completed all the necessary administration requirements regarding the payment of severance packages to retrenched employees. This means that they can make early payments of the first tranche of the retrenchment packages, which will reflect in ex-employees' accounts from week beginning 10th of June.
The city of Tshwane will implement load reduction in and around Soshanguve north of Pretoria from 6 until 10 in the evenings this week. The city says customers' demand for electricity has increased due to the cold weather and the current grid cannot handle the demand. The city has called upon consumers to switch off non-essential appliances to reduce chances of overloading the electricity system. And finally, the UN Security Council has adopted a resolution to reach a comprehensive ceasefire deal in 3 phases to end the war in Gaza. According to the resolution, Phase 1 includes an immediate full and complete ceasefire with the release of hostages, including women, the elderly and the wounded, the return of the remains of some hostages who have been killed, and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners. The resolution also calls for the withdrawal of Israeli forces from populated areas of Gaza, the return of Palestinians to their homes and neighborhoods throughout the enclave, including in the north, as well as the safe and effective distribution of humanitarian assistance at scale. Phase 2 would see a permanent end to hostilities in exchange for the release of all other hostages still in Gaza and a full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. Recapping the top story, a constitutional law expert, Lufuna Nevondwe, says only a court of law can stop the first sitting of Parliament from convening. This comes as Umkhonto we Sizwe Party wrote to the Chief Justice in Parliament for the sitting not to convene. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's T20 Cricket World Cup action with the unbeaten Proteas. They edged Bangladesh in a low-scoring thriller in New York. And soccer to look forward to. Bafana coach Hugo Broos calling on fans to support the team in their crucial World Cup qualifier against Zimbabwe tonight. All this and more just before 6:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And it's a good start this Tuesday on the roads. No major problems. Onto the rails we go. It's good news there as well. I just had a look at the Pretoria networks. They're all running on time. All of the trains that run through and to and from Pretoria are okay this morning. It's a full house of operational services, which is good news. Down in Cape Town and staying with the trains, there's been a problem with the rail management train control centre in the early hours of the morning. Now, it has been rectified, I believe, but there are some cancellations and some delays. About 5 trains cancelled on the Southern Line, and the Malmesbury train service to Cape Town operating, well, they're saying allow an additional 60 minutes. So if you are a train user in the Cape Town region, probably a good idea to check before you travel due to that earlier incident. I'm Rob Byrne. SAFM Sunrise starts now.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 minutes after 6, good morning, welcome to SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Well, we don't yet know, and I don't know, maybe you know, who our new government is, who's going to be in it. I think we have some sort of vague idea but still really no certainty. A few things are now beginning into place, and I think the Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's maybe done everyone a favour by concentrating some minds and putting people on a clock. Basically said, look, Friday. It is Friday. The National Assembly will meet on Friday. We'll swear in MPs, we elect a speaker, a deputy speaker, and after that, well, then we have to elect a president. And I think that sort of puts to bed all of the how late can this go? When will it all end? Will it be Saturday, Sunday, Monday? The National Council of Provinces will only meet on Saturday. The provinces themselves will only meet at times specified by the judge's president of that province. Now, what that seems is they also have to do it in the same deadline. So I suspect Friday is going to be very, very busy. I think you're going to have action in all sorts of places in different ways, and maybe at slightly different times. I think some places are easy. Limpopo and the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape are kind of easy. You know who's going to be elected Premier there, sort of. What we don't yet know is what's going to happen in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, and KwaZulu-Natal in particular really is a very complex picture that's emerging. Okay, so the National Assembly will meet on Friday. Umkhonto we Sizwe says they won't be there. They say that they still want to go to court to stop the sitting. As far as I know, they haven't actually lodged the court papers to stop the sitting. They also, insofar as I know, haven't lodged an application in any court questioning the outcome of the results. And we'll put this to a lawyer. I wonder if you have to do one before the other. You can't say we're going to court to stop the actual sitting if you haven't gone to court to overturn the election results, if you see what I mean. So we'll try and get to the bottom of that. The National Assembly says that it will oppose any application by MK to stop the sitting. It will go ahead. Also, as we know, that the National Assembly can make a decision and swear people in and elect a president with only a third of people actually there. That would be the quorum. So basically, MK's boycott won't stop the sitting from going ahead. The National Assembly also saying it's cancelled the flights and accommodation for MK members because otherwise that would be wasteful expenditure. I don't know how you see that. I thought that was interesting. Meanwhile, Jabulani Khumalo saying that he essentially believes he's the person who legally formed Umkhonto we Sizwe. He says that he will be there. Now, this is where the maths gets interesting, as I understand it. And when we spoke to Xolile George, the Secretary to Parliament, on Friday, and this is what I'm basing this on, his numbers. To become elected president, you need a majority of votes of the members of parliament who are there in the National Assembly. So if there are 400 members there, you need 201. If MK doesn't go, they have 58 seats. So then the parliament is reduced to you would need basically a majority would be 172. That would be the majority. You would need 172 votes. At the moment, the ANC has 159. So they need another 13 more to get sort of across the finish line. They need 13 more. And we don't yet know what's happening because the Democratic Alliance said they needed more time. They're having meetings. There'd been no sort of public commentary, no public confirmation of any kind of agreement yet. We kind of know the ANC's been meeting with various parties, but we don't yet know if anything's coming out of that. I must say, I presume that the ANC can't really work with MK. I presume. And I don't think MK can really say it'll work with anybody if they don't take their seats. So you almost need to sort of to put it to one side until they take their seats. The EFF says they will support MK in KwaZulu-Natal. And if you look at the maths there, it does seem that the National Freedom Party will basically decide what happens. But even then, on the one side, MK, the EFF, they get to 39. On the other side, you've got 80 seats in KwaZulu-Natal. On the other side, the IFP, the ANC, and the DA come to 40. But you still need a majority. You need 41. So if the NFP decides to support the IFP, ANC, DA, then you have 41. Otherwise, you don't, and then I don't know what happens. We'll speak to the National Freedom Party later. They're actually at the centre of all of this, and they've agreed to speak to you in an hour's time. So yeah, a lot going on in KwaZulu-Natal in particular. I don't know how this is going to end. And then obviously the National Assembly will keep you up to date with all of it. Just another comment on that. This is the Business Daily this morning. The African Peer Review Mechanism, they're part of the AU. They've publicly rebuked the ratings agency Fitch Fitch had said that it believed that a sort of DA coalition would be better for the markets. They sort of were commenting on that. The African peer review mechanism saying that Fitch is trying to influence the coalition discussions. This gets to the heart of this conversation we've heard about the markets and voters. And, we've heard a lot about that. I must say, no matter which way you go on that, I don't know if you can say to any organisation you're not allowed to express a view one way or another. And I think that does get quite complicated. I don't know if you can. A couple of other things happening politically. The EFF lost a court case that now basically says that the EFF is not allowed to disrupt or disturb Parliament. It can't just disrupt it. And that Parliament is allowed to take action to remove people who do that. And this, of course, has been going on for a very long time. The Malawian Vice President, as I speak to you now, Saulus Klaus Chilimba, still missing. Took off from a plane at Lilongwe, I think it was, yesterday morning. 9 people on the plane with him. The plane went off radar. No one knows where it is at this stage. Watching that quite closely. I'm sure Sipho Montula will have more for you on that. I think it's a really important issue. And so, I think that is something that is a very important story. And then Richard Mbluli, his trial will go ahead in October. And he had basically said, now you may remember he was in charge of police crime intelligence, there were all sorts of charges against him, and he and others are basically accused of using the sort of slush fund, the crime intelligence fund, for their own properties, things like that, basically using properties, international travel. He had said that the police must pay his legal fees. It seems for the moment that's not going to happen. And then one last thing, I don't know if you eat pilchards very often. Not my thing. I've got to tell you, pilchards, not my thing. But they're produced pilchards, and there's a particular brand that's produced by a company called Oceana. And Astral Foods, which produces chicken, is now basically going to really go for them in the canned chicken market. So you're going to have canned pilchards against canned chicken. It's probably going to come to the brand of tomato sauce they put it in with, or the brine or something. But I don't know if you have a view on that. Do you prefer pilchards? Yuck. Canned chicken? Which way would you go? Pilchards not my thing, but they may be your thing. So I don't know what you think, if you would go for pilchards or for canned chicken. You know the number, 086 000 2032. You SMS 41391. You tweet us FM Radio and at Stephen Grootes. Send your WhatsApp voice notes to 0614 104 107. Good morning. It's 15 minutes now after 6 o'clock.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
And Musa, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Stephen. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, all right. We muddle on. How are things going this morning?
Well, today, following the announcement by the Chief Justice that the first sitting of the National Assembly will be taking place on Friday and the NCOP sitting taking place on Saturday, we look at comments regarding the expelled MK Party founder Jabulani Khumalo attending the sitting. The Secretary to Parliament, Xolile George, has written to Jabulani Khumalo informing him that he may not attend Parliament's first sitting as he's no longer a member of the party which initially nominated him, as well as analysis on whether the sitting of the 7th administration will go ahead on Friday. Parliament as well saying that it will go ahead despite the MK Party's court challenge.
And we've got the provinces also have to start meeting. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of action Thursday, Friday, it seems.
Definitely, and Saturday.
And Saturday, yes, of course, yeah.
And then parties that have been in talks with the ANC on the proposal for the Government of National Unity, finding out have they agreed or they've not agreed. As in our courts, looking at the more witnesses are expected to take the stand. That's in the trial of the husband and wife, Sibusiso and Lerato Shabangu couple, who's accused of murdering Lerato's former boyfriend and the father of a child, Sibusiso Sitebe, in 2022, and the pair allegedly made it seem as if Mahlangu, who had died in a house fire, and not Sitebe, in order for them to actually claim a 500,000 rand life insurance cover. And a Vodacom official is expected back on the witness stand in the Senzumehiwa murder trial that's taking place in the Pretoria High Court this morning. In the Durban Magistrates Court, the results of the mental evaluation of Grayson Bay and his bail application taking place, and the Durban man allegedly stabbed a woman to death for supporting Palestine. Last week, he was sent for psychosocial evaluation. He attacked a family of 4, fatally stabbing the mother while leaving the father and son with serious stab wounds. And just lastly, we also taking a look at the inclusive education workshop that will be taking place today. It's under the theme Driving Equity, Skills and Resilience for an Inclusive Future. And the objectives of the workshop are to basically share progress on the provision of inclusive education in the sector.
And Musa, thank you very much indeed. A lot going on this morning. 18 minutes after 6, we'll be listening on the radio.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Your weather around the country now. Tshwane, frost in the morning, otherwise fine, 4 and 18. Johannesburg, frost in the morning, otherwise fine, 2 and 17. Vereeniging, fog in the morning, otherwise fine, -2 and 17. Bombela, fine, 7 and 20. Polokwane, fine, 0 and 19. Mahikeng, fine, 3 and 17. Vryburg, fine and windy, 0 and 19. Mangaung, fine, 0 and 18. Kimberley, fine and windy, 0 and 19. Uppington, fine and windy, 9 and 24. Cape Town, partly cloudy, light rain in the evening. A moderate to fresh northerly wind, 20 and 22. George becoming partly cloudy by the afternoon. A light to moderate northerly wind, 17 and 26. Gqeberha, fine. A light to moderate northeasterly wind, 15 and 25. East London, fine. A light to moderate northwesterly, 13 and 24. eThekwini, fine. A moderate to fresh northerly to northeasterly, becoming strong to gale force at times in eThekwini, 6 and 22. Richards Bay, fine. A moderate to fresh northerly wind, also becoming strong to gale force at times, 10 and 24. And Pietermaritzburg, fine, 5 and 22.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone, so you can go fast? Or for many to go together, so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Johannesburg Water is concerned about the current high water consumption, which is causing a severe strain on the entity's systems and threatens the sustainability of consistent bulk supply. Play your part in conserving water by following these simple tips. Reporting leaks and burst pipes. Do not leave taps dripping and repair your internal leaks. Wash your car on the grass, as this will water your lawn at the same time, and shorten your showering time. Together, we can reduce water wastage and protect this precious resource. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Are you ready to empower yourself with an accredited tertiary qualification? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning programs will set you up for success. Whether you're balancing work and family, or you're a school leaver who must work to support yourself and your studies, Stadio offers access to high-quality, affordable qualifications in law, teacher education, commerce, admin and management, policing, and more. Mid-year applications are now open. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
21 after 6, good morning. In Europe, right-wing parties have made a series of unexpected gains in several countries in elections for the European Parliament. In France, the right-wing party there did so well, the President, Emmanuel Macron, has decided to call a snap election for Parliament there. The Relais National got more than twice as many votes as Macron's party. Professor Anthony van Niekerk is a professor of international and diplomacy studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs at UNISA. Professor van Niekerk, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Stephen.
So Europe, it's a big continent. There are hundreds of millions of votes cast. What kind of European Parliament has now been elected? A lot of commentaries focusing on what they seem to think is a right-wing sort of surge in some way.
Yeah, indeed. We had this conversation, I think, yesterday. And indeed, everybody is thinking that the right wing is moving fast and capturing a big slice of the 720-seat European Parliament. It's huge. Can you imagine the hall? But it's not as bad as predicted because, let me quickly go through some figures. The two groups in the European Parliament that mirrors political parties amongst the 27 member states that stayed quite stable and strong is the center left and the center right. The European People's Party, they've got 185 out of 720. And then the Socialists and Democrats, 137. And the thinking is, these are the two big parties, the two big blocs in the European Parliament. The Greens lost a lot, and the Liberals lost a lot. And the right wing grew quite substantially. But if these two big ones that I'm talking about, the EPP and the SND, if they come together in what they call, in European political language, a grand coalition, then they will dominate the European Parliament. And so there's stability there ensured, with the growth of the right wing, but not as big as a threat as many people thought. Which means if we have to cast our eye back to the member states, I think that is where the dynamic sits. This is a reflection of some of the trends that's happening at local or membership at national level. And indeed, you've pointed out the French. Macron has taken a sort of a risk to have an earlier election in the hope that he can expose the right as unable to actually, manage a complex country like France. Cynics even say that he might lose this snap election. The far right comes into power and then fails to govern effectively, and that prepares the field for him 2 years later to come back triumphantly. That's possible. The Belgians are also in trouble for the same reason. And then, of course, we know that the right wing in other countries like in the Netherlands and in Italy and in Hungary has made substantial progress. And I think, Stephen, what's going on here perhaps is it's a protest vote against the establishment who failed to, in their view, to manage immigration, cost of living, the war in Ukraine.
I mean, it's almost an iron rule of democracy everywhere, going back to the beginnings of democracy, which I suppose you could say are the French Revolution. If food prices go up and the cost of living goes up and the actual living standards go down almost anywhere, you're going to have a big response and the governing party is going to feel that. And you could argue that that's happened here 2 weeks ago, but it's certainly happening in Europe.
Absolutely. I think this is how to interpret, how to understand. And remember, there's unease in Europe because of this lingering war in Ukraine. The threat of Russia, the countries close, the neighbors to Russia really have an existential problem with their own future. And under these conditions, voters look for a sort of a right-wing option or solution. You look inward. You close the border. You marshal the troops. You prepare yourself. And I think that's more or less what's going on in half of Europe. And then, of course, we can talk about this at length. The failure really to regulate European borders and to allow immigration where it is needed. Remember, Europe's population is shrinking. It's not growing. They need workers. They need skills and talent. But with it comes unregulated entry of undocumented migrants, and that causes a big problem. And again, the instinctive reaction, I think, of a voter is to turn inward, to look for politicians who are nationalist or populist, to say, this is our country. Geert Wilders does this very well, and it's quite disturbing to see him rallying the average voter in the Netherlands to say, this is our culture under threat, our language, our way of life. Let's work these people out. And he succeeds.
Very quickly, I mean, Macron, it's an audacious move. I mean, his entire career has been sort of, characterized by audacity. Is he going to be is it a clever move in the long run?
I don't think so. There's a very strong, I don't think he's a very popular president anymore. The far right has made substantial moves in France. And again, this question of immigration, how to deal with, Macron is very quick to say, let's support Ukrainians against the Russians. Let's deploy all our resources to help Zelensky. That's not a popular thing to do at the moment because people are suffering economically. And he might not be able to come back after the snap election.
Professor Andoni van Niekerk, thank you. Professor of International and Diplomacy Studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Good morning, you're with SAFM, 27 after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
Everyone said we were about to lose this thing. Wow, what a finish.
Well, hey, you know what, South Africans, we love a good nail biter. And the Proteas, they really gave us one last night. They took on Bangladesh in New York. It was a low-scoring thriller, but our boys came out on top. Heinrich Klaassen top scored with 46 as Proteas posted 113 for the loss of 6 wickets. Bangladesh's reply fell short at 109 for 7, despite a strong effort from Tauhid Hridoy, who scored 37. The match saw standout performances as well from Tanzim Hassan Saqib with 3 for 18 and Kagiso Rabada taking those crucial wickets. Here's Heinrich Klaassen.
I think David showed us the previous game how to bat on this wicket, and it's almost a similar way that we bat in the middle order in a one-day game. So our mindset is not even close to T20 cricket. You just want to get in and find a way to bat a runner ball, and we know you 1 or 2 hits away just for going over a runner ball strike rate. That just means that we have to change our mindset completely. You can't just stand there and just smack it all over the park.
Let's go to some soccer news where Bafana head coach Hugo Broos insisting that victory in their World Cup qualifier against Zimbabwe tonight is the only acceptable result. Following a 1-1 draw against Nigeria last week, Hugo Broos' team know the importance of the upcoming match. They will play in front of a sold-out Free State Stadium, which will provide extra motivation. Other soccer news, Nigeria's qualifying campaign took a wrong turn. They had a 2-1 defeat in Benin in their African qualifying for the FIFA World Cup. In another match, we saw Equatorial Guinea. They went on to beat Malawi and claim their first win of the game. The result means Equatorial Guinea remain 5th, but are now just 3 points behind their visitors in 4th. Other soccer news closer to home, Cape Town Spurs and Ernst Middendorf have announced a U-turn over the future of the veteran coach and that he will be staying at the club despite their relegation from the DStv Premiership. Last week, Spurs said Middendorf was parting ways after failing to keep the club in the top flight. But it was announced that both parties have had a change of heart. Spurs finished bottom of the table with 23 points, 7 adrift of 15th place Richards Bay. More soccer action. The Czech Republic had a 2-1 win over North Macedonia with 2 second-half penalties in their final tune-up for Euro 2024. And rugby news, Cheslin Kolbe has been released from the Springbok training camp amid concerns over a knee injury. Kolbe, who was named amongst the 35 players for the Bok training camp, joined his teammates in the country's capital but was released yesterday to examine the extent of the niggle picked up during his Japanese club season. That's a wrap of his sport on Sunrise. We'll bring you more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Well, lots to come. We'll find out more about that awful barbershop murder in Khayelitsha. 3 children killed. Is this extortion rackets? We'll try and find out more for you on that. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Good morning, 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, Secretary to Parliament Xolile George has written to expelled MK founder Jabulani Khumalo, informing him that he may not attend Parliament's first sitting on Friday as he is no longer a member of the party which initially nominated him. The city of Tshwane will implement load reduction in and around Soshanguve north of Pretoria from 6 until 10 in the evenings this week. The city says customers' demand for electricity has increased due to the cold weather and the current grid cannot handle the demand. And the United Nations Security Council has adopted a resolution supporting an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg N3 already struggling along in some heavy volume, and of course the roadworks at Van Buren. So already from the Elands interchange up through Van Buren and in towards Gillies. The N3 north out of Germiston through Bedfordview is busy. Durban's Kwamashu Highway, very heavy for motorists driving in from Kwamashu down towards the N2. Queuing traffic there, quite heavy backlogs between Mallandela Road and the N2 Highway Bridge. The N2 north just starting to backlog as well, looking quite slow already from the sort of Booth Road Bridge territory territory up through Spaghetti Junction and into the roadworks. No roadworks on the M4 this morning. That Congela-Umbilo section is clear. There is the closure of Brook Street, which will cut in and cause some delays on the M4 going in, but a little bit later this morning once the peak hour volume sort of increase along that southern freeway option. And Cape Town, clear, busy on the highways, no major incidents. Just coming out of Mitchell's Plain these days is very busy. AZ Berman queuing up towards the M7 down towards the R3, or the R300 down towards the M7. That exit from Mitchell's Plain is busy, and some queuing pressure just south of that as well. Highlands Drive down towards the M7, also very slow. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intalingla Chela, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Stephen. I'm well, thanks, and I hope you're good.
All good. How are the markets looking this morning?
Well, sentiment in the US seems to have improved ahead of the Fed's meeting and ahead of the consumer inflation print, with US markets closing in the green yesterday. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite hit fresh records, being boosted by gains from market darling Nvidia. Moving over to Asia, markets are mixed as investors analyzed political uncertainty playing out in European markets after right-wing gains in the EU elections, and a snap poll in France revived concerns about the cohesion of the EU bloc. Traders on that end also eyeing a rates move from the Bank of Japan, so caution remains the name of the game. On home ground, it's a sea of red, with the all share losing 0.86% in yesterday's close, mainly fueled by losses in the Resources 10 complex, which shed almost 1.5%. Looking at the local unit, the rand seems to be firming, breaking under the 1880 mark. It's currently trading at 18.79 to the dollar.
And Japan's economy shrinking in the first quarter.
Now, the Japanese economy is under pressure, contracting 1.8% on an annual basis in the first quarter of 2024, despite that this is slightly better than the initial estimate at a 2% contraction. The estimate was revised upwards due to an improvement in private sector investments. Meanwhile, quarter-on-quarter estimates remained unchanged, with the economy contracting by 0.5% during the first 3 months of the year. Now, the Asian nation has been dealing with a weak currency. The levels the yen is trading at is boosting the travel industry, but it's weighing on imports, making them more expensive, which is a sore point for a nation that imports almost all its energy. Sluggish consumer spending has also been a drag on the economy. Private consumption accounts for about half of Japan's economic activity. Now, despite the downbeat print, economists are still quite positive about Japan's growth prospects, saying we'll see a recovery in activity in the second half of the year.
And then Omnia is rewarding shareholders despite downbeat earnings.
It is, Stephen. Now, Omnia's board has declared a final dividend of R3.75 per share and a special dividend of R3.25 per share. The company's CEO, Seelan Gobulsamy, said consistent earnings and strong cash generation allowed it to invest, buy back shares, and pay the special dividend. While its balance sheet is strong, its income statement is rather downbeat. Revenue declined 16% and earnings fell 6%. This was mainly due to lower commodity prices, and the company believes that these are just short to medium risks, saying earnings will normalize and pick up. The optimism comes as it benefits from its diversified nature, saying that its strategy to invest in high-growth international markets is starting to pay off.
Intalingla Chela, thank you very much indeed. Back, of course, in an hour's time. More business news through the day here on SAFM. 24 minutes now to 7.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
There's sponsoring a news feature, then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank, Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning.
Steve, refresh morning and Jumbo Africa to the listeners.
All right, it's an incredible story. The Vice President of Malawi, Saulos Chilima, a former First Lady, 8 others still missing.
Stephen, they are still missing the Malawian soldiers are searching for the missing plane that left yesterday in the morning from the capital city, Lilongwe, in the morning around 9:20, expected to land 45 minutes later at Mzuzu International Airport. In that plane, Stephen, as you said, the former First Lady Shanil Zimbiri, the former wife of Baliki Mulusi, and 8 others, Stephen, are still missing. They were attending a funeral of one of the cabinet members. Now, President Chakwera have said that both USA, UK, Norway, Israel have offered to assist in the search operation in terms of finding this military craft that went missing yesterday. Stephen, we know Chilima has been a vice president since 2020, and he was facing also corruption charges since 2022. But this search, Stephen, is going on, and others are already punting what has happened in Iran. But it appears that President Chakwera has pleaded with the Malawian citizens to pray for the rescue of the vice president as well as the former first lady and 8 others who are still missing in Malawi, Lilongwe.
And Egypt once again at the center of the situation in the Middle East.
Stephen, Blinken is blinking in Cairo. Yesterday he went there. This is, others are saying, the 8th diplomatic mission to the region since the conflict began in October last year. He will meet with President Abdullah Fattah el-Sisi, as well as to travel to Israel, Jordan, and Qatar. We know, Stephen, his visit also is because there is a proposed ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas that still others are saying is hanging in the balance after this dramatic rescue of 4 Israel hostages that were held in Gaza. So the Middle East is still back on the African continent.
And then in Uganda, the president there, Museveni, directing landlords charging too much rent to basically return some of it.
Stephen, in the Ugandan language, they call it those nominal rent fees, obusula, and you say must be returned to the Bibanji holders. This was said yesterday at the 35th Heroes Day celebration that was celebrated under the theme Hail Our Heroes. A secure Uganda is now a reality. President Museveni coming very clear, Stephen, on the question of the 1998 Land Act in terms of how the tenants and the lessee have to always find each other. And those who are charging people high monies, they should bring back their money, and as well as to seize illegal evictions that are happening in Uganda.
And then in Zimbabwe, a leaked voice note by a businessman. What does this show us?
Stephen, this shows about around the issues of the what we call democracy, buying of elections and using money. This businessman Chifayo has fingered President Dambuzo Mnangagwa in his expensive and shadow dealings that he said include millions that were paid for printing and delivering of last year voting material. It's an audio leak that has been going on the rounds. This was a man who was part of what we call the G40, and at the same time he went on to be part of Mnangagwa's core team. Now he went on saying that he's exposing the former president. The government of Zimbabwe has not said anything, Stephen, so far about this allegation coming from Chifayo, who has fell out with Emerson Mnangagwa.
And then in our archives, this day, 11th of June, 1976.
5 days from now, Stephen, as we are looking at Soweto Day or the Youth Day, it was on this day when the then apartheid Minister of Bantu Education, Andries Trianach, rejected the applications by 5 Soweto schools to depart from the so-called 50-50 policy in the secondary education, which was entailing the equal use of English and Afrikaans in the schooling space. As you know, Stephen, this is the focus of Soweto Uprising, and you see the parliament is also heated this week. Asante Sana SG is still leading the conversation, SAFM observing the Youth Month.
Ras Advocate Sipho Mantula, thank you very much indeed. Back tomorrow. More news, of course, from our continent through the day. There's listening to the news, then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking.
When humans invented the wheel, we thought that getting things from A to B would stop there. But it didn't. Soon after, horses drew carts to deliver goods. And that could have been it. But it wasn't. Because the goods had to move quicker. So we invented cars and went from hooves to horsepower on highways. Then the goods got heavier. So we built tankers to ship the cargo across the sea. And then we needed a solution that was cost-effective. So we built trains to transport the cargo. Then we wanted to receive the goods the following business day, so we built planes. But then we wanted a smaller and faster aircraft, so we invented drones. And it won't stop there. Because with the right mindset, there's possible. Then there's more. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far we can take your business. Standard Bank is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Rampi on the line from Mangaung. Rampi, hi. You want to talk about licenses? What's this? Driver's licenses?
Morning, Steve. Morning, listeners. I had a conversation yesterday, and you suggested to someone, maybe an official, and you said, what if we use electronic cards? And then they shot it down, and they say not all drivers have got smartphones.
Yeah.
And my 2 cents is that we don't need all drivers to have smartphones. How about all those who have got smartphones? They get electronic, and I bet they are like 25% and I'm being modest here. So we have 25% on electronic driver's license. Won't that reduce the pressure? If we take 25%, it reduces pressure from the system, and then maybe it will be better. But I bet they are more than 25%.
No, Rampi, I would have to agree with you. It was Leighton Beard from the Automobile Association who shot me down so quickly. I understand why he did it, though. I think, Rampi, I must say, I wouldn't have suggested it if I didn't think it could work, but I just think the idea of having to carry a card around, to me, is just very 20th century,
Yeah, but reducing the pressure on the system, and then we see what happens in the future. I think that could be the immediate solution. But I guess once we go electronic, maybe I'm being speculative here. Maybe money flows there, that kind of thing in terms of gains that some people profit from the system. But we could take 30-40% of people from the physical cards, and then we move on.
No, Rampi, absolutely. I think that's a very good suggestion. Thank you from Mangaung. And I don't know if it's really worth spending all of that money on one new machine if there's other technology available. 17 minutes to 7.
Municipal services play a vital role in keeping our city safe, clean, and functional. By paying for municipal services like your water bill, you're investing in the future of the city of Johannesburg's water supply. Paying for your services is not just a transaction, but a commitment to the sustainability of your community. Let's continue to pave the way for a brighter tomorrow, one payment at a time. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
My name is Alan. I'm 71 years of age and I live in Douglasdale. I'm paying 554 Rand a month for my 2022 Nissan Magnite.
Want a car insurance premium that'll blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote. It's quick, it's easy, and it could save you hundreds of rands every month. Here's Amy.
To anyone who has not reached out to OUTsurance, what are you doing? Reach out today.
Blow your mind, not your paycheck. SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself why OUTsurance was voted Best Car Insurer 2023 by the Star and Pretoria newsreaders. Here's Yusuf.
It just shows that OUTsurance is top of the tops when it comes to insurers.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Channel the best father you can be on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As psychologist Clint Maggot offers effective coping strategies for men's mental health. Get tips on saving and investing for your child's education. And hear how Dr. Anza Chipetane shapes bright young leaders. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
And we will buy 500 cars and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
14 minutes to 7, still no clear understanding about why a group of men entered a barbershop in Site C in Khayelitsha over the weekend and suddenly started shooting at everyone inside. A 30-year-old man was killed. 3 children were killed, the youngest just 5 years old. I mean, you can imagine how this has shocked the community. Regan Allen is the Provincial Police Minister, or the MEC, for Police Oversight and Community Safety in the Western Cape. MEC, good morning to you. Are you making any progress in the investigations?
Stephen, thank you so much for highlighting this particular incident. I think it's deeply horrific. I have received a briefing from the South African Police Service. There is persons of interest that is being tracked, but we have seen once again how brazen criminals have become by literally walking into a particular shop, and like you have indicated, 3 children have been killed, including 3 additional children that have also been wounded. But I am keeping close contact with the South African Police Service to ultimately receive any update that I will be able to communicate as soon as possible.
We've seen many dynamics in Khayelitsha around extortion rackets. I mean, could that be part of this?
I've said one particular, I've made one statement to the SAPS. I've said we are needing to ensure that no particular motive is off the table. We say this knowing that the SAPS in its current form is not ideal. It's not totally what we want the SAPS to be. So extortion, gang-related, but also with regards to any potential drug trafficking that took place at that particular venue. So we are definitely wanting to ensure that all the motives are investigated, so that we can get closer ultimately to catching these perpetrators.
Are you introducing other measures to try and make Khayelitsha safer for people? We've seen the crime rate there, from what I understand, since the pandemic has really got much higher. More and more people are becoming victims of crime, and it's not entirely clear why that is.
Stephen, as many would be aware, our LEAP intervention is specifically in our priority areas. Khayelitsha has 2 of those particular areas, which is Site C and Rari as well. So we have deployed our LEAP officers to that particular area to work with the South African Police Service. We work with neighborhood watchers and the CPF in that regard, but we definitely know we have such a long way to go to ensure that we can ultimately bring a safer community to Khayelitsha. But Stephen, once again, this is a clear call that when we look at the investigative powers that is required by Metro Police, I think this is another direct call for that to occur, but also for policing powers to be re-evaluated so that we can actually have it at the provincial level, and the policing needs and priorities of a particular province as per the constitution can then be taken into account with those powers closer to the people ultimately, and not all the way in Pretoria.
MEC, thank you. Regan Allen is the MEC for Police Oversight and Community Safety in the Western Cape. You with SFM. Listening to that is Monde Bambelo, Chair of the Khayelitsha Community Policing Forum. Monde, good morning to you. 3 children, the entire community must be in such shock. I can't imagine how their parents are feeling. This must be very, very difficult for Khayelitsha.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to your viewers. It's the situation here in Khayelitsha is particularly in Site C. The whole community is traumatized by what has occurred.
Are you seeing more shootings like this? I mean, we've seen more mass shootings in the past. Are you seeing more attacks like this in Site C?
Look, in terms of the guns within this area, I'll speak to directly as this particular week we are coming from. There's been deaths almost every day leading to this massacre. So that then suggests that we have a major crisis in this community, and we need serious intervention.
What's driving the crisis? I understand poverty is part of it. Is the drugs trade part of it? Is the extortion trade part of it? Both of them together, maybe?
The major crime in Khayelitsha that drives everything, it's the extortion. Everything that is currently happening in Khayelitsha, it's related to extortion. May it be drugs, may it be any other crime, but everything is linked to extortion. That's the unfortunate part.
What do you think what will it take to stop that from happening? Do you need the army there? Do you need more police there? I mean, would police even help?
Look, we need serious partnerships now. Let's not politicize this issue. The city of Cape Town, with including SAPS, They must put their differences aside and put the needs of these communities in front. They have the city of Cape Town has state-of-the-art technology when it comes to finding weapons and all that. Why they don't use those very same gadgets, including with SARS or, even the Defense Force and everyone else, to eradicate all these firearms that are within our society? As the way we are looking at it as communities, it seems like no one cares. It looks like it's a big business to other people. If that's not the case, they must prove it to us as the community that they really, really care about us. They must stop coming here when these crimes have occurred. I said to the Minister of Police previously, I said to him and his men, let us have a proactive approach. Let's not be reactionaries, That's why we find ourselves in these situations, because it seems like no one has a plan in terms of how to curb this crime in this community.
Monday, you must almost just feel ignored or neglected. I mean, it must be a terrible feeling, especially when you have funerals that now need to happen. I mean, it must be an awful feeling.
We've always known that no one cares about us. It's a no secret. If you can look at our service delivery and everything else, it's right there at your face that no one cares about us. But anyway, it's gone are the times where we must put blames. All we are saying to all these departments, can we unite? Can you actually inject some resources within Neighborhood Watch, within sector forums, within CPFs, within Community in Blue, within subs, so that we can be able. Remember our subs also at Khayelitsha police station. They have no vehicles there.
Sure.
How are they gonna assist us if they have no vehicles? Honestly,
they have no police cars there. Seriously,
they are very limited. They are there, but they are very limited. If you go to that police station, you find a lot of men on the booth. They are sitting outside. They don't know where to do because there are no vehicles. Unless we come with a strategy, even those who don't have vehicles must be on the ground. Because sometimes I say, if you don't have the resources, take all your men, put them on the ground. We have a lot of informal settlements here that needs, because cars can't get inside. We need men on the booth in those informal settlements, like Taiwan, like a BM, and other informal settlements within this environment, within this area.
Monde, thank you. Monde Bembelo is the chair of the Khayelitsha Community Police Forum. 6 minutes now to 7.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, it's all got very busy all of a sudden on the roads. There's a crash scene on Joburg's N3 North. Now, it's inside Giluli, so it's N3 North, ramp to the N12 East, return to Boksburg or the airport, and that is putting enormous pressure coming in from Germiston and Albert in the N3, up through Cement Factory, through Bedfordview, through the roadworks at Van Buren, and then into that ramp to take you onto the N12 East. Very heavy. Also, big traffic on the M1 this morning. Pretty high volumes out of Pretoria down to Joburg, but also crashed just past New Road. So the right lane is closed and all that big volume just queuing heavily from Bruckfontein interchange all the way down to a point just south of the New Road exit. Durban's N2 off to a busy one as well. There's some heavy pressure this morning, which queues before the M7 highway up through the roadworks at Spaghetti Junction into Westwood Mall area. Now looking a little bit heavier than it normally does. If you're coming off the south coast for flight connections, make sure you got time to get through that backlog. It's all to do with those roadworks. KwaZulu Highway very slow. Malindela Road is the back of the queue right down towards the N2 highway. And Cape Town, a breakdown on the N1 into town this morning, just before the Kuberg interchange. Queues coming through from the Plattercliff Hill area. And traffic on Marine Drive. It was pretty bad yesterday with a crash near Sunset Beach. This morning we turn around and just queue at Sunset Beach, and then more queues down towards Lagoon Island. So getting busy out of Tableview through Milnerton in towards Pardon Island. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
William on the line from Cape Town about the situation in Khayelitsha. William, hi, good morning.
Hello, Stephen. I've heard now the guys say there's no vehicles in Khayelitsha. He's lying. It's not true.
Why do you say that?
It's not true. I'm staying in Cape Town, and I've been walking in Khayelitsha since Little Park was 4 or 5 houses. That was more than 20, 30 years ago. And the thing is that there's no visible policing. You just see the police, they drive around, you see them sometimes by KFCs, you see them by they're not doing their job. That's the problem. There must be visible policing in Khayelitsha, and it's not Khayelitsha alone. If you come over by Philippi, you see there is no traffic cops. There is just driving. Young boys are driving these informal taxis, and people just do whatever. There's no law and order. People go over the red robots. They don't worry. They do just whatever they want in the township because there is no policing, and there's no But the problem is, why you see the police, you come in town and you see all these cars standing there. The police are doing nothing. They're just standing on the Grand Parade. I mean, they can deploy the people in the townships because there is no policing in the township and there's no traffic policing in the township. People just do whatever they want, and you just see it's only in the township and mostly in the black township. You just see there's lawlessness. The people just do whatever they want to do. If the taxis they want to drive on the side of the road, it's nothing, and the taxis want to drive on the opposite. There's no law and order.
All right, William in Cape Town. No, I can hear your frustration. Thank you. Is it Andrea on the line from the Midlands?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Go for it.
I just want to tell you that I am a coloured person and I'm a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now 60 years old. I've taught so many children, and my heart, I just have a heart for our communities and our children, all our children. And it's really heartbreaking to see what is happening, especially in the coloured areas. It feels as though we've just been abandoned. I come from a family of teachers, and we have really served the community. We have produced so many professional people who give to the community. I'm actually married to an Anglican priest. And it's very sad to see, because you're talking about these killings in Khayelitsha. For a long time, I've been concerned about the deterioration in the coloured communities and what seems to be like ignoring of what is happening there. I mean, we deserve, as taxpayers and citizens of this country, we also deserve the protection of the police. And who are those police? Are they're like worse monsters than the drug lords when they are being paid to protect our people and uphold the law.
And do you think the neglect, why do you think it's happened? Is it deliberate? Is it political? Is it a mistake? Is there something else?
I feel that there's just a blind eye. I mean, really, our government has a mandate to provide protection and to stamp out lawlessness. And yet, it just goes on. Drug lords live in plain sight. People know that the police are in collusion. Coloured people are branded as gangsters and drunkards and people who don't have any ambition. And yet that's not true. We've got so many law-abiding, respectable people who have made huge contributions to South Africa.
Look, you can't label any group as this or that, but yes, no, I know what you mean.
And yet our children are growing up. It's like they're forced into this, terrible way of life. I grew up in Wentworth. I can't stand going there anymore.
Sure.
You hear gunshots in the middle of the day.
Andrea. Sorry, Andrea, I cut you off. Yeah.
There were 3 young men killed in a place called, the address is 25 Bristol Crescent. They were 16, 19, and 22.
Sure.
And if I hope I'm correct, this happened on Saturday, late Saturday afternoon, I think.
Andrea in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands, thank you. Strong views, and I think the sort of sense of how people are feeling is beginning to come through in this discussion. You're with SFM leading the conversation at 7 o'clock.
In our top stories, Jabulani Khumalo informed he may not attend Parliament's first sitting, and UN Security Council adopts resolution calling for ceasefire in Gaza. Good morning. The Secretary to Parliament, Xolile George, has written to expelled MK founder Jabulani Khumalo, informing him he may not attend Parliament's first sitting on Friday, as he is no longer a member of the party which initially nominated him. George indicates he is in possession of correspondence from the MK party to Khumalo, which outlines the internal organizational processes followed, notifying him of his removal from its parliamentary list. Khumalo had earlier written to the Parliamentary Secretary indicating his attendance of Friday's ceremony, despite the MK party indicating its 58 members would not attend Parliament's first proceedings due to its unhappiness with the election results. The Independent Judiciary Monitoring Organisation, Judges Matter, says it's unlikely the MK party will be able to stop Parliament's first sitting. This follows the party's lawyers sending a letter of demand to the Secretary of Parliament and the Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, asking both officers to refrain from convening the first sitting of Parliament. Research and Advocacy Officer at Judges Matter, Mbegizeli Benjamin.
If anyone is aggrieved by the decision of the IEC on the election results, MK and about 20 other parties had filed objections and the IEC had dismissed those objections. The Electoral Act says that they must, within 3 days, file an appeal with the Electoral Court. So if you're not happy with how the IEC decided on the outcome of your objection, then you can appeal to the Electoral Court. That appeal needed to go in by Wednesday last week. And I'm not sure whether the MK party has filed that appeal, because if not, then unfortunately the ship has sailed.
Disgruntled former post office employees say despite several follow-ups with post office, they have not received their severance packages. 5,000 workers were retrenched from the cash-strapped state entity in April. The retrenched employees say they can no longer provide for their families. One of the retrenched employees, Omama Boa, says she can't afford to buy food for her children.
This issue is affecting me a lot because I no longer have an income. I have 2 children that I have to take care of. I don't even have a cent to send them to school or even food. I am always at home. There's no way I can go since I have no one to assist me.
Meanwhile, Post Office Joint Business Rescue Practitioner Louise Brugman says workers can expect their first payments this week.
Post Office's business rescue practitioners have completed all the necessary administration requirements regarding the payment of severance packages to retrenched employees. This means that they can make early payments of the first tranche of the retrenchment packages, which will reflect in ex-employees' accounts from week beginning 10th of June.
The city of Tshwane will implement load reduction in and around Shoshanguve north of Pretoria from 6 until 10 in the evenings this week. The city says customers' demand for electricity has increased due to the cold weather and that the current grid cannot handle the demand. The city has called upon consumers to switch off non-essential appliances to reduce chances of overloading the electricity system. And finally, the United Nations Security Council has adopted a resolution supporting an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The proposal sets out conditions for a full and complete truce, the release of hostages held by Hamas and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners. Israel has already accepted the plan. The BBC's Nada Taufik reports.
The passage of this resolution coincided with the U.S. Secretary of State's 8th visit to the Middle East. Washington is urgently trying to exert as much pressure as possible in all arenas to get a deal done. The Arab group of nations ultimately united around the resolution after days of negotiations. Algeria's ambassador Amar Benjama said the text wasn't perfect, but that they wanted to give diplomacy a chance and a glimmer of hope to Palestinians.
Recapping the top story, the Secretary to Parliament, Xolile George, has written to expelled MK founder Jabulani Khumalo, informing him that he may not attend Parliament's first sitting on Friday, as he is no longer a member of the party which initially nominated him. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, soccer, the Bafana coach Hugo Bruges is demanding victory in tonight's crucial World Cup qualifier against Zimbabwe. And in cricket, the Proteas edge Bangladesh in a low-scoring thriller in New York, and that's in their T20 World Cup win. We'll have the details and more just before 7:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very heavy getting through Midrand on the run from Pretoria. A Seoul native just saying it's amazing how so many Pretorians commute to Joburg than Joburgers do to Pretoria. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And at this time of morning, that traffic is heavy coming from Brakfontein across all lanes, all the way down to a crash between New Road and Allendale. So you've got to almost get to Allendale before you're out of that enormous backlog. I have put a picture up on x.com at Traffic SA. You can have a look how bad that is. The N3 running north is heavy again today from Alberton and Germiston. That's into a crash on the link off the N3 onto the N12 east at Galulis. That's a pretty big queue. Make sure you got plenty of time to get through there. Durban, the N2 north queuing heavily this morning from Cement Factory through the roadworks just north of Spaghetti Junction. The M7 bluffbound very heavy coming through the N2 down through the roadworks at Bel Air at Wakesley. And a lot of traffic on Cape Town's N7. You're queuing up the first queues from Fangate Mall through to about Beaufort Circle, so passing Langa into Epping's heavy, and then another queue out of Goodwood through towards the Bosmansdam Road exit. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 after 7, good morning. You're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. A lot more to come. We've got the situation in KwaZulu-Natal very, very complicated. We'll speak to the political party at the centre of that, the National Freedom Party, in just a moment. Also, Professor Pierre de Vos, we will speak to him and just get an understanding of how things play out in the National Assembly. I think there might also be a question about whether, I don't think we'll have another national election, but whether there might be another provincial election in case, and if you look at the result, maybe not, probably not. I would think probably not. But let's find out. Your mediated conversation in a little while, WhatsApp that you use on a daily basis is changing, and it's changing quite quickly. We're going to find out more about that. Just something that we keep a very close eye on because so many people use it. I'm almost certain that if you communicate with someone today, you're probably going to use WhatsApp more than once, I'm sure. 8 minutes after 7, good morning.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
Well, while we wait for the National Assembly to sit on Friday morning and for MPs to be sworn in there, provincial legislatures also have to have their members sworn in. The Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, said yesterday the timing of the ceremonies in the provinces was up to the judges president of those provinces. Of course, some of the provinces should be fairly simple. For example, I presume the ANC will elect ANC premiers in Limpopo, the Eastern Cape, other provinces. I presume in the Western Cape, the DA will elect a premier from their party. In KwaZulu-Natal, it is not clear to me what will happen. There are 80 seats there. MK won 37, the EFF won 2. The EFF says it will support MK. Together, they have 39 of the 80. That's on one side. The IFP won 15, the ANC 14, and the DA 11. They have 40. So you've got 40 on one side, 39 on the other. As I understand the law, you need 41 to win an election in that legislature, even if the IFP, the ANC and the DA can work together, and even if MK and the EFF can work together. But it's not clear if MK will take up their seats in the KwaZulu-Natal legislature. They have said they will not take their seats in the National Assembly. So then the party which may hold the balance of power in KwaZulu-Natal is the NFP, the National Freedom Party. If it goes with the ANC and the DA and the IFP, they would have 41 seats. If it goes with the EFF and MK, they would have 40. Kenan Ndleche is the Secretary General of the National Freedom Party. Mr. Ndleche, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to the listeners at home.
A very complicated situation in KwaZulu-Natal. Have you decided yet what you're going to do?
Indeed, it's quite complicated considering that the numbers, as you just mentioned, as yet we have not made any decision as the National Freedom Party. We are still engaging. In fact, we have engaged with the ANC and the IFP, and today we'll be meeting with the MK Party to see where are we going to put our one seat to. But as things at the moment, I think we must be clear, Stephen, that the people of KwaZulu-Natal have sent a clear message to all of us as political parties that they do not want to be led by the ANC. Therefore, we are approaching these talks with a clear mindset, with a clear view that we cannot go against the will of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. That's our approach. But having said that, we are not going there as arrogant because it's not about us. Yes, we hold the balance of power, but the reality is it's about the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Therefore, approaching these engagements cautiously, knowing that our one seat can determine who or which political party governs KwaZulu-Natal. But as things stand at the moment, the people of KwaZulu-Natal prefers the MK party over all other political parties.
Okay, I mean, that's absolutely true. They got more votes than anyone else. Can you work with MK if they don't take their seats in the KwaZulu-Natal legislature? Because then, if they don't, you can't work with them. Do you know if they will take their seats in the KZN legislature?
At the moment, we are not quite sure whether they are going to take or not. We are still meeting them today at 11 a.m. That's when then we know whether they are going to take their seat or not. But whether they take their seat or not, our approach is clear. We are going to meet all political parties, except, of course, the Democratic Alliance. We are happy as things stand because they have not approached us, and we are not going to approach the PA because I think we've got a different policies compared to the PA. Our view is that for as long as the PA still believe that it's not going to support affirmative action, the PE, then we've got issues with that stance. Therefore, we have not met the PA. We are not going to meet them because, as I said, we've got a complete different framework compared to them. And as things stand at the moment, we are going to meet the MK. We don't know whether MK is going to take their seat in KwaZulu-Natal, but that is not an issue for us. What is important is that we must engage all political parties, of course, except the PA.
Okay, so would that mean then that the DA is a red line for you? If the ANC and the IFP come to you and say, we can do this, we can make you, maybe yourself or maybe someone else in the National Freedom Party, an MEC or even Premier, you still would not work with them if it included the DA?
We were quite clear, Stephen, that you cannot come to us with a bag carrying a smolanyana PA with you and expect us to accept that. That's the no-go era to us.
Okay, now I understand that. If you work with MK and the EFF, and I presume you don't object to the EFF, would that be right?
We've got a good relationship with the EFF in KwaZulu-Natal in particular.
Okay, so you and the EFF and MK together have 40 seats. Do you think you would still be able to elect a premier? I think the law uses the word majority. We'll get clarity on that in a moment. But there are 80 seats in KwaZulu-Natal with 40 seats. What would happen? Would you be able to elect a premier? I don't know if you could.
It's a dicey one. What happens in local municipalities when the situation of this nature arises, they toss a coin, and whoever gets elected through a coin then gets the mayoral chain. And we don't know whether in the legislature the same applies, but we are going to wait and see. But Stephen, I think it must be clear that we have not yet decided whether we are going to work with the MK-EFF coalition or not. It's just that we are saying, as things stand at the moment, we cannot go against the will of the people of KwaZulu-Natal.
No, sure. Mr. Mletshe, let me be clear. I think it helps us to know what cannot happen. You've said you can't work with the DA. We now know that cannot happen, if you see what I mean. So I think this helps. Let me put another broader question to you about KwaZulu-Natal, if I may. With this outcome, do you think it's actually possible for anyone to govern in KwaZulu-Natal?
It is possible. It is possible, and I'm saying this cautiously, Stephen, because I've heard from the grapevine that the ISP and the MK have already met, and it seems like they are agreeing on certain issues or certain terms. So it is possible, and definitely we have to have a government in KwaZulu-Natal. That is going to happen, whether NFP is part of it or not, but we are going to have a government in KwaZulu-Natal. It's a must to have a government. And one is optimistic that in the next few days we are going to be able to find one another and come up with a solution that is going to ensure that KwaZulu-Natal gets a government, we get a government that is going to work for the people of the province. Because for what has happened in the past, it's clear that the people of KwaZulu-Natal are not happy with the services that was, or with the ANC that has failed them. And therefore we're saying we are, as the organization, approaching these engagements with the hope that our contribution is going to assist in ensuring that KwaZulu-Natal gets a proper government.
There may be, I don't know. I mean, if the IFP were to work with the ANC, let me go back a bit. If the IFP were to work with MK and KwaZulu-Natal, you are, of course, correct. They would together have a majority. And the only way, probably, for the ANC to stop that from happening is to include the IFP in a national agreement. So the IFP would work with the ANC in national government, and that would then have implications for KwaZulu-Natal. Do you think it's fair that people in KwaZulu-Natal could have their future decided by what happens in national government? I mean, this goes in many directions.
That would be very unfair, because when the people of KwaZulu-Natal decided to vote in the manner they did, they were clear on their mindset. And therefore it would be unfair for them, for their future to be decided by what happens at the national level. And I'm hoping that the leaders who are participating in these negotiations are going to ensure that they prioritize the province more than themselves. Because if we put the province first, we're not going to have an issue whether at national level the IFP or any party is part of the national government of unity or not. The fact is KwaZulu-Natal must have a premier. KwaZulu-Natal must have a government that is going to function properly. Therefore, I'm hoping and optimistic that whatever the leaders are deciding is not going to affect what is going to happen in KwaZulu-Natal.
Canon Mdletshe, sir, thank you very much indeed for your time. Secretary General of the National Freedom Party. 17 minutes now after 7 the time. We're listening to that. The Professor of Constitutional Law from the University of Cape Town's Department of Public Law, Professor Pierre de Vos. Professor de Vos, good morning to you and thank you for your time on SAFM. I'm going to go to the National Assembly in just a moment, but if I can just stay with KwaZulu-Natal. MK members may not take up their seats in KwaZulu-Natal. We don't know what they will do. That would mean of the 80 seats in KZN, 37 of them would be left open. Could a provincial legislature really meet and elect a premier with so many empty seats?
Well, they're required to meet within 14 days and elect a premier. And just like with the National Assembly, as long as 1/3 of the members are present, they will be able to proceed. So if MK doesn't come, then somebody else will be elected premier without their votes. So yes, that is what is required in terms of the Constitution.
There are various permutations here. You have the MK, the EFF, the NFP, that's 40 seats. The IFP, the ANC and the DA come to 40 seats. The NFP holds the balance with a single seat. What happens if the NFP person were to just not vote or kept abstaining and you ended up, or we just ended up getting 40 and 40 and 40 and 40 out of the 80? I mean, what happens then? I know in local government, Canon Mdletshe just reminded us that in local government they toss a coin. Could that really happen in a province?
Well, we actually don't know what will happen, because the Schedule 3 of the Constitution says if there is the equal number of votes for the two candidates for premier or president, then the legislature the sitting will be postponed for 1 week, and there will be another election. If there's again equal number of votes for both, then the Constitution is silent on that. It doesn't provide for the flipping of a coin, so that is not an option. So the idea is that the parties in that week will come up with some other agreement. If they don't, probably, yes, there might have to be another election, although it's not that clear whether that is possible in this particular scenario.
So there is the option maybe of another election in a province, not nationally, just a province?
Yes, you can have an election. It so happens that we've always had an election for the 9 provinces and for the national parliament at the same time. But these are each one of these are separate elections, and each of the provinces they can, if in various permutations, can dissolve the legislature. There can be another election if the requirements are set in place by the Constitution are met.
Okay. I worry that there's going to be a lot of argument and debate at some point about the phrase in English, a majority. To my mind, if you have 100 seats, a majority is 50 plus 1. Is that the right definition?
Well, seats is not the correct way of looking at it. It is the number of votes. So if you have 100 seats, if 100 members vote, you need 51 of those votes. If there are 100 seats and only 90 people vote in the election, then what you would need is 46 votes. So, yes, it is an absolute majority, not of the number of MPs or legislators in that legislature, but the absolute majority of the votes cast for the election of the president or the premier.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that point in a moment. Umkhonto we Sizwe has said they're going to court to stop the National Assembly session from happening. Parliament has said it will oppose that. MK has said in public they believe that the election outcome was not correct. They have, insofar as I know, provided no evidence of that, and they haven't yet gone to any court that I'm aware of to try and overturn the election result. At this point, does MK have a case to stop the National Assembly from meeting on Friday?
Well, they're not going to be able to stop it, firstly, because the Constitutional Court is not going to be able to deliver a judgment by Friday. The problem that they have is, first, that the Electoral Act specifically says that if you're challenging any aspect of the election, that does not suspend the outcome of the election. So the court cannot then suspend the outcome of the election if the Electoral Act specifically says it doesn't. They can make the argument, at least at the National Assembly case, which they've been making, that it would not be constituted if the 58 MPs are not present, because you need 350 members. That is a nonsense argument, because the Section 46 actually refers to the creation, the establishing by the legislature of the size of the National Assembly. The legislature has set the size of 400. 400 people have been elected. So, yes, I can't see them at this stage stopping the National Assembly through the court from proceeding. Of course, if at a later stage they convince the court that there has been material and serious problems with the election, that at that stage then there could be nullifying of the election or whatever the case might be, but it's not going to happen this year.
Okay. Insofar as I know, they've also not instituted a case in any court in which they claim under oath that the elections were rigged. So, yeah. I mean, if you haven't started that application, can you? So what you're now saying to a court is, we believe the elections are rigged. We have not told a court that. We want you to stop the National Assembly anyway. Do they not need to actually go to court first to say the elections were rigged before trying to stop the National Assembly?
Well, if they are basing the argument on the fact that the elections have been rigged, they will. That's not possible to do an interdict, as I said, because the Electoral Act says that before the court has actually decided, or while they are looking into this, it doesn't suspend the outcome of the election. So that would be a really bad legal argument. Of course, yes, they will have to, if they're serious about this, they will have to actually go to the court. They will have to present the evidence. It's going to take at least months for court to consider that. In the meantime, the Parliament will continue as if the court case is not happening.
Okay, so as things stand then, and now we're back to this phrase of a definition of a majority, there are normally 400 MPs. We understand the meeting will go ahead. A majority would normally be 201 to elect a president. Without the 58 MPs from MK, a majority, by my maths, I won't ask you to check my maths, I just want you to check my law, a majority is 172. So basically, the ANC, if they want to proceed and elect President Cyril Ramaphosa as president again, and they have said they do want to do that, they need 172 votes. They have 159 seats in the National Assembly. They're 13 short. Is that right on the law?
Yes, that is exactly correct. So, of course, there might be other parties who decide to be sworn in, to be present, but not to vote. That will change the permutations, that might even require them to have fewer votes. But yes, that would be the case in your scenario, that they would need that amount of votes. I haven't checked your math.
No, sure. Okay, and those 13 extra votes could come from anywhere because it's secret ballot. And I mean, it could even be that ANC MPs vote against Cyril Ramaphosa, for example, which would change the maths completely, but we presume for the moment that parties will stick to the party line.
Yes, so it is a secret ballot, but obviously the MPs from each party will be instructed to vote in a certain way, or they'll be instructed not to vote, whatever the case might be. We don't know at this point.
And the Chief Justice presides over this session. I mean, he's the one who's going to have to keep order in what could be, well, it depends what happens, but could be a different session. I mean, MK could still, legally, I imagine their MPs still have the right to arrive on Friday and take the oath if they so choose.
Yes, they have been elected, so they, before they can take any action in the National Assembly, they have to be sworn in. So they can do that. They can also stay away. If they stay away, then they're just not there. They don't have a say in the election of the president.
Professor Pierre de Vos, really appreciate the time. Thank you. Professor of Constitutional Law at the University of Cape Town's Department of Public Law. You're with SAFM 27 after 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Victory for the Proteas last night. Hugo Broos wants a win tonight.
Absolutely. If the Proteas can edge out Bangladesh, Bafana can definitely beat Zimbabwe tonight. Let's get behind the team. And that match will kick off at 6 p.m. It's all happening at the Free State Stadium. It's sold out. And Coach Bruce is optimistic. His players are rested after they drew 1-1 with Nigeria. This is a very important World Cup qualifier against Zimbabwe for Bafana Bafana. Here's their head coach.
A game between neighbours is never easy. But at the other side, I think that from our side, that there are many things changed in the last 3 years. So we are a better team now. From Zimbabwe side, I saw a team that was very physically aggressive in the right way.
Moving to Egypt, they maintained their 4-point cushion at the top of Group A in African qualifying for the FIFA World Cup with a 1-1 draw at Guinea. Egypt now have 10 wins, 4 draws and just 1 defeat in their last 15 World Cup qualifiers. Cricket, the Proteas edged out Bangladesh by just 4 runs in a low-scoring thriller in New York. Heinrich Klaassen top scored with 46 and South Africa posted 113 for 6. Bangladesh's reply fell short at 109 for 7 despite a strong effort from Tauhid Hridoy, who scored 37. The match saw standout performances from Keshav Maharaj and Kagiso Rabada taking crucial wickets. Tennis news, and Britain's Emma Raducanu says she is in a really fit place as she prepares to start her grass court season at the Nottingham Open. The 21-year-old skipped the French Open to focus on her fitness, having not played since losing in the first round of the Madrid Open in April. Raducanu, who had wrist and ankle operations last year, faces Japan's Ina Shibahara, and that's in Nottingham. That's the first round taking place today. And finally, swimming. The American Bill May was vying to be the first man to compete in artistic swimming in the upcoming Olympic Games in Paris after a rule change by World Aquatics opened the door for men to compete in the sport, allowing up to 2 per national Olympic team. May has made history by becoming the first man ever to win artistic swimming gold at a major event by winning the mixed duet technical routine gold with his partner Christina Jones. He also had a medal at the World Championships in Budapest, Fukuoka in 2023 and Doha in February this year. Let's listen to May.
So this will be the very first time in history that men will be allowed to compete at the Olympics. So it's a great opportunity for myself. It's a dream, but it's also a huge opportunity for the sport because it is the first time that men will be allowed to compete, up to 2 men in the sport. So for young athletes to see it and see the inclusion of men and to see the acceptance, I think it's a big step for our sport to grow and to become even a greater sport.
Exciting developments. We'll have more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. More coming in the next little while. We'll find out more about the racism directed to the footballer Vinicius Jr. in Spain. He's from Brazil. It's become a major issue with SFM leading the conversation 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the National Union of Mine Workers has signed a 5-year wage agreement with mining company Petra Diamonds. The agreement is an extension of the 2021-2024 wage deal between the parties. The Secretary to Parliament, Xolile George, has written to expelled MK founder Jabulani Khumalo, informing him that he may not attend Parliament's first sitting on Friday, as he is no longer a member of the party which initially nominated him. And at least 38 migrants from the Horn of Africa have died after their boat capsized off the coast of Yemen. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Better news coming in from Midrand. The earlier crash near New Road's being cleared, but it's left a very busy Tuesday run through from Brockfontein down to Olifantsfontein Road. The side road, the old Joburg Road, is an absolute traffic disaster. Motorists diverted onto that during that crash at New Road, but the crash is being cleared. But both those routes running parallel through towards Midrand are really heavy this morning. Also, crash on Joburg's N3 North, ramping onto the N12 East inside Galilee's interchange. That traffic stays dreadfully heavy from Alberton and Germiston. Big queues off the N3 and N12 into the N3 at Elance and then all the way through Bedfordview and up into Galilee's. There's also some heavy pressure on the M1 passing Devlin for links onto the N12 East at the Deep Cliff interchange. Durban, a lot of complaints about the N2. We've been mentioning it and we're seeing it all over sort of Durban social media as well. Major delays this morning from Chatsworth up through Spaghetti Junction and into the roadworks up by Westwood Mall. Now behind that, the N3 is almost back at Paradise Valley. Some real problems turning off the N3 inbound onto that N2 North. And the M7 worse than normal with queues from Belleville Road at Queensborough all the way down through towards Bel Air and Wakesley. Cape Town, the N1 inbound, a breakdown before Kubo interchange, so that's heavy from Plattercliff Hill. And if you drive a Rosebank every morning, this is not great news. Part of Belmont Road that links Campground Road through to Main Road has been closed. So that section of Belmont closed is causing big delays coming into it on Park Road from sort of Milner. It's causing delays on Campground, on Lisbech Parkway going south, and just generally around the closure. Some very heavy traffic in that part of Rondebosch. If you normally go that way, try and stay away and pick up some alternative routes. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intalengla Chela, good morning again. How are the markets so far?
Starting things off in Asia, markets pretty mixed. Chinese markets in particular under pressure, with Chinese electric vehicle makers slumping as traders awaited the European Commission's decision on provisional duties expected later this week, while tourism-related shares dropped amid weak holiday travel demand during the recent Dragon Boat Festival holiday. With that, China's Shanghai index is down 1.1% and Hong Kong's Hang Seng falling 1.7%. In the US, futures are in the red following a record high close from the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq yesterday. We're probably seeing some caution at play here as the Fed's two-day meeting kicks off today. Back at home, sentiment is quite sour, with the all share closing 0.86% lower on the back of a near 1.5% decline in the resources 10 complex. In the currency markets, the rand is making slight gains, this despite the caution in markets and ahead of the Fed policy announcement, as well as amid political jitters in the country. It's currently sitting at 18.76 against the dollar.
And then Alex Forbes, they delivered bumper earnings in a tough environment.
That's right, Stephen. Now, Alex Forbes seems to have shrugged off the impact of the challenging economic environment, delivering double-digit growth in both its top and bottom line. This comes as the retirement and wealth management streamlining efforts bear fruit and as the group's recently acquired businesses start contributing to profits. This further resulted in bumper returns for shareholders as Alex Forbes declared a final dividend of 30 cents per share, reflecting a 19% increase, and a special dividend of 60 cents per share, distributing 778 million rands in additional cash to shareholders and reducing the group's surplus capital position. Moving forward, the group is preparing for the implementation of the two-part retirement system, which President Cyril Ramaphosa signed into law last week. It regards the move as an opportunity to connect and educate members about their options and the long-term value of their retirement fund investments.
And Oceania looking to diversify into the canned liver. This is chicken liver market.
Right? Quite tricky.
I quite like liver. I won't lie. I do like liver.
I like liver, but I don't know about canned liver, Stephen. So Oceana is eyeing a bigger share of South Africa's protein market. The owner of the Lucky Star brand is already coining it with its canned fish products. And for further growth, it's looking to invest in canned liver products. Now, the group has a 75% stake in a chicken livers operation based in the Eastern Cape and is looking to grow that business and ready products for the retail market. This move comes as Oceana looks to diversify its product offerings and to secure more market share in the broader protein category. In addition to that, the group has also been producing corned meat since about October last year from a separate factory on the West Coast, with plans to manufacture other Lucky Star products such as baked beans. These plans come alongside its interim results where profits were up almost 86% on the back of a strong performance from its US business and upbeat second quarter canned food sales volumes.
Ntaoleng Lachela, thank you very much indeed. Back, of course, tomorrow. More news, business news through the day here on SFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Let's go to Matthew in Khayelitsha. Matthew, hi. The situation in Khayelitsha, we've heard people say there are no police cars there. We've heard other people say there are cars, but officers are not doing visible policing. How do you see it?
I don't physically live in Khayelitsha, Stephen. Sorry. Good morning. But what I can tell you is not only in Khayelitsha, there seems to be a lack of resources in terms of policing. But in terms of law enforcement, where the government is in charge or where they at least dictate policies, I'm talking about nationally and provincially, it is absolutely devastating the way under-resourced all government departments are in terms of safety and security for all citizens in this country, Stephen. And if you can compare the situation in Cape Town, currently now in Muizenberg, Metro Police is busy training thousands of young people at the moment in the Western Cape in Metro Policing. But I don't know why are they so more visible in some areas in Cape Town and not in other areas. That remains to be the questions. Do they? I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, the DA should oversee all safety and security then in the province, but only in certain areas it's more concentrated than other areas. So that remains the question, because the gentleman that spoke before, the gentleman you spoke to, he said that the policing should more rights should be given to policing in provinces instead of policies being dictated in Pretoria. But it sounds like there is a political agenda in him, and the other.
Well, he's from the DA, and that is their view. They want more powers for the provinces. I mean, he's allowed to make that view, but that is his view. Yeah.
You see, but now the guy that spoke after him, it seems he was more neutral. The voicing, he wanted everybody to participate in everything, which I think it was right. And I don't know, the situation in Cape Town is devastating, Stephen. That's all I can say. I don't know what's going to happen, but something seriously needs to happen in terms of safety and security in our province.
No, sure, Matthew, I can't disagree with you. Absolutely. I mean, of course, there is a major issue there. Thank you, Matthew, on the line from Cape Town. To Durban, Etiquette, Kalani. Hi, I'm Konto Sizwe. Go for it.
Good morning, Asya. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. Go for it, Kalani.
I'm very well. Stephen, just as a layperson, I just want to understand one thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to divert a bit from CCMA. Let's say I'm dismissed from work for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I have 30 days to file a complaint at CCMA.
Yeah.
Do we perhaps know how long does the MK needs to go and approach the court if, as they say, that purportedly the elections were rigged?
Oh.
Is there any timeline?
There must be a timeline. I don't know what it would be, but that's such a good question.
Yeah. Because the reason why I'm asking, Stephen, is because we've had analysts saying, and yourselves just said that the MK has they haven't approached a court.
Yeah.
So that is why I'm asking from a layperson to say how many days does the MK would have need to go and approach the court, because as I said, I just made an example with CCMA.
Yes, there's usually a time. There is no, Kalani. Absolutely, there's usually a time, and I'm kicking myself. I've tried to get rid of all of the. You know, when you do an interview with someone like Professor DeFoss, you try and work out all of the things you need to know. Anyway, yes, no. It's such a good point.
No, that is all what I wanted to clear, Stephen.
All right,
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. On the line from Durban, thank you. No, important point, really important point. Joe on the line from Soweto. Hi, good morning. The situation in Khayelitsha policing.
Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, Joe. Go for it.
I'm good. Yes, man. You know, we're having a situation whereby our government doesn't implement the right strategies in terms of policing. Because of definitely for sure, Khayelitsha, it's not the first time that we're hearing these situations that are happening. I think they should implement the strategy whereby there is a visible policing that is happening. They involve the community in order for them to police their community. That is the strategy that will work because of the people, the community, they know who are the criminals within their communities. So they need to utilize that. In terms of policing, Stephen, we have community policing. In South Africa, we don't engage the community in terms of policing. So now, and we also utilize the reactive method, whereby we don't utilize the proactive method, whereby we should prevent crime before it happens. So that is the situation, Stephen. We're still going to have those problems if the government doesn't strategize in terms of policing. Thank you very much, Stephen.
No, Joe, thank you. Yeah, look, I mean, I think there are going to be issues there. Kalani in Durban, you asked a very good question a moment ago. How long do you have to actually lodge complaints about the election? And in fact, two people have got in touch with me very quickly to just say 3 days. You actually have 3 days. So that to me would suggest that the time has expired. You know, the election is proclaimed. Finish and clear, full stop. So it would seem to me, based on that for the moment, Mkhonto Wesizwe is out of legal options. I mean, as I say, I'm not the expert on this, but that is my understanding at this moment. 18 minutes to 7.
Channel the best father you can be on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As psychologist Clint Maggot offers effective coping strategies for men's mental health. Get tips on saving and investing for your child's education. And hear how Dr. Anza Chipetane shapes bright young leaders. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone so you can go fast? Or for many to go together so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Bafana, the AFCON 2023 bronze medalist takes on Zimbabwe Tuesday, the 11th of June 2024 at Free State Stadium at 6 p.m. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets are available for 50 Rand for adults and 20 Rand for children under 12. Scholars in uniform and students, student card required at Ticket Pro. Come dressed up to support Bafana to win prizes. If you're not in Mangaung, catch the game on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 at 6 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
16 minutes to 8. Good morning. Well, of course, we don't know what's going to happen with the coalition discussions, but the Police and Prison Civil Rights Union, POPCRU, saying that they believe the ANC must place workers first while it tries to make a decision about what to do next. Tulani Ngwenya is the president of POPCRU. Tulani, good morning.
Good morning, Steve, and good morning to your listeners at home.
You say workers must be placed first. What do you mean?
Yes, Stephen, as you know that we are coming from a Bruce administration of 6 administration. When I'm saying the coalition must put workers first, I'm meaning that whatever had happened in the 6th administration, where workers have not yet got what they deserve for the 6th administration from 2018, non-implementation of that agreement, and also the 2020 during COVID, where we were giving grant, as well as the 3% that we were giving in 2021, 2022, as well as the 4.7%. That was far below. Workers have been worse off in the 6th administration. So now, the voters have spoken to say we need politicians to work together in order to advance the interests of the people of South Africa and the workers. So we are also saying as the workers, we need to be part of that and to be taken care of when the ANC is going to make this coalition government.
Okay, you say workers must be placed first. There are 11 million people who have no formal income at all. They're unemployed. Shouldn't they come first? They have nothing. You at least have a job. Shouldn't the unemployed come first?
The 11 million people that are there are taken care by the same workers which are working in the public service. The same workers, they've got families which falls under that 11 million. It's not that the 11 million they are just there without any employment, but some of them have been taken care by the same workers who have been worse off since the sixth administration was in power up to now. So that is why we were saying for everything to start afresh on the seventh administration, workers must be put first, so that when you put the workers first, then the 11 million will come in and be taken care by the same workers who are already in the system.
I don't know if they feel that. Surely people who have no formal income at all should come first, however you describe that when it comes to government, not people who already have something. I mean, isn't the whole point of South Africa, in a way, to look after people who have nothing? These are people who have no jobs. Surely they come first.
But Steve, if you are saying people who don't have job, they must come first, we're not denying. We're saying workers and the poor must be taken care of. Because if you look at it now, workers are as good as have retired in 2017 because their last salary increase and their pension increased in 2017. In 2018, it was for the first time in the sixth administration where government was taken to court. Take workers to court. The same workers that are supposed to deliver the service, so that are supposed to support their families. The same government gave workers a grant of 1.2, which at the end of the financial year, that grant is going to be taken back again, Stephen. And then the same workers, they were given 3%, of which was nothing in terms of the increment. The same workers that are struggling have been given 4.7%. So there's no movement of workers for the whole of the administration.
But at least they have income. The unemployed have nothing, is my point, Tulani. I mean, I understand you have a constituency to defend. I understand you have an argument to make, and it's my job to argue with you one way or another. The point is, when you issue a press release saying that workers must come first, ahead of anybody, there are people who have far greater needs than workers, people whose position is far worse than workers, is the point I'm trying to make.
Our statement is saying workers and the poor. It does not isolate on the workers. It says workers and the poor must be taken care of, because the poor, yes, I agree, they've been worse off. But the same workers who are supposed to be delivering the service to the same poor people and also supplying their families with what they're supposed to, they need also to be taken care of. It's not supposed to be just a blanket statement to say it's about them in parliament and what, the workers and the poor. Because as workers, we represent the poor, we represent the families. Those are our children that are not employed. Those are our brothers and sisters who can't get employment. So we're saying, once you you take care of the workers, it means it's going to be easy even for those who are coming into the system to be taken care of.
Okay. Tulani, I presume you agree with Kasatu that the ANC should not work with the Democratic Alliance?
We have said, because we are part of COSATU, we are going to a central committee tomorrow. We are preparing for that central committee to say a no situation with the DA. Why we are saying that? We're informed because, firstly, before the election, Democratic Alliance was the leader of the Moon Pact, of which the voters of South Africa have put it clear that they don't want this Moon Pact. All of a sudden, the Moon Pact did not work. Now they are available to talk to the African National Congress. We are saying to the African National Congress, they must be aware and they must be very cautious. But as COSATU, we are going to reiterate, we are going to say it as workers. We are not going to associate ourselves with anything that is anti-worker, with anything that is trying to make sure that the workers' rights are dealt with, because they said it clear that the draconian laws of labor laws, they're going to deal with it. So we're not associating ourselves with
No, sure, I appreciate that, and I know that has been the position for a long time. If you look at the maths, if the ANC has to decide, the DA or MK, which would you pick? Would you pick MK?
We'll pick all those who are on the left. All those who are thinking alike.
Is MK on the left? Is MK on the left?
Yes, it's on the left.
MK is on the left?
Yes, it's on the left.
And it wants unelected traditional leaders to basically be able to pass laws in an upper house of parliament. It wants to send 15-year-old women, 15-year-old girls to Robben Island if they fall pregnant. That's on the left.
We're saying the constitution is there because up to now, we have been governed by the Constitution.
Yeah, but you say you're supporting a party on the left. How's MK on the left?
Everybody who is thinking alike the African National Congress, everybody who's got the interest of the working class, everybody who's got the interest of the majority of the poor people in the heart, those are the people on the left. Whatever they've put, it was for electioneering, it was for everything, but the Constitution is still there. Because make sure that it doesn't touch what affects the and poor and is going well line themselves with those.
All right, Talani and Gwenya, unfortunately losing you on that line, but I appreciate the engagement. Thank you, President of the Police and Prison Civil Rights Union Pop Crew. 8 minutes to 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
When my son was accepted for national championships, I wasn't prepared for the costs. Then I remembered that Cash Converters has a 30-day cash advance loan. Just go to your nearest Cash Converters store with your jewelry, electronics, tech, or something valuable. They'll keep it safe for you and you'll walk out with the cash you need. This loan made it possible for my son's dreams to come true. Now I'm a proud mom of a champion. Cash Converters. We buy, we sell, we loan cash. The clock is winding down and the world's most renowned games are drawing near. With a wide variety of delightful action such as basketball, badminton, cycling, hockey, handball and volleyball. It is less than 50 days to the Olympics. The world's top athletes are all chasing an Olympic medal. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. Experience the Olympic Games Paris 2024 from Friday 26 July until Sunday 11 August. Live on SABC TV channels and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. SABC Sport, the official broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. For the love of the game.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
The Gen 3 highway under even more pressure now. We still have that collision on the N3 North ramp to the N12 East inside Galuli. So a lot of backlogging going on out of Alberton from Voortrekker Road, out of Germiston from Rand Airport interchange. Once those highways then merge at Elands, it stays all the way through to that off-ramp to Galuli's. Now, if you're coming southbound, there's also been a crash just before Linksfield, so quite heavy passing Alex area. The Mike 1 heavy today as well from Boysons all the way through to Grayston Drive up in Sandton. That's a queue that extends well past the sort of normal backlog into the Parktown area. Crash near Atlas Road coming out of Benoni on the N12 causing some delays, and just a lot of congestion around the Buccleuch interchange. The N1 North from Rivonia, the N3 from Limbro Park, getting into those ramps. It'll take you onto the N1 Midrand very slow today. The N1 through Midrand still jam-packed between Brockfontein interchange and the new road exit, and there's been a collision on the N1 South before the N4 highway in Pretoria, so coming through from Stormful, that's backlogging. A lot of traffic lights out in Pretoria CBD, so expect a bit of chaos there. Durban fully loaded on most of the highways. It all sort of stems from an earlier crash on the N2 just after Spaghetti Junction, the roadworks. The N2 this morning is very heavy from the cement factory. Behind that, the N3 queues from Paradise Valley out in Pinetown into that N2, and the M7 from sort of way back in Queensborough down towards the N2 and through to Bel Air Wakesley. It's very heavy along that N2 corridor and the routes that feed into it this morning. Cape Town, Belmont Road at Rondebosch is closed, causing a lot of congestion around Park Road, Lisbeth Parkway and the Campground Road, and a crash on the M3 inbound before Hospital Bend, causing a big backlog coming through from the Bishop's Court area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Hassan on the line from Johannesburg wants to respond to that conversation we had with Pop Crew. Hassan, hi, good morning.
Hi. I mean, there are 2 points, Stephen. One, of course, I understand it's your job to push him.
Sure.
But, given the earnings of CEOs, I mean, especially the CEO of Vodacom and the CEO of MTN, the Vodacom CEO in 2023 made something like 35 million.
Yeah.
Right? And then, of course, in the same period, MTN made 70.6 million. Now, and then, of course, there's expired airtime. There's a whole lot of things like that we protested about, that these guys could really do a lot more. So I think that your point about we must care for the
unemployed
below us
Yeah.
has to start from the top. I really think we must get those guys into the studio. Then the second point really is that I understand people want Palestine and that to be factored in, but I really think that, in my view, that MK is not on the left. Its culture, its values are anti-solidaristic towards poor groups. It's disrespectful towards women. So I don't put them on the left. So I'm from the left, but I don't agree.
Right, Hassan in Johannesburg, thank you. Bonakele, hi, good morning.
Very quick. I hate these alliance partners called SOCP and COSATU. Do you know these people have been, these alliance partners have been threatening to go out of the ANC and leave the ANC and stand on their own. But now they come and if you go with the DA, this and that. I'm not sure if they were that serious and they look at the impact they are going to do. I wish they can go away and stand on their own, man. I hate these alliance partners, honestly speaking. If the ANC listens to them, I shame to them. Okay, Papa, Stephen. Have a nice one.
Bonakele, thank you. I think your point was well made. In Ndlovu in the Eastern Cape, Coalitions, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. I think, Stephen, my point is the same as the latter speaker now. You know, Stephen, I was wishing for a long time that the other political parties could have trade unions, like the ANC has in COSATU, so as to counter the influence of COSATU. Because, Stephen, I'm a school teacher. I belong to SADU. I'm a SADU member. But the way these people have been conducting themselves for many years now, they are self-serving, number one. They don't really represent us as workers. They represent their interests. You see, Stephen, if their positions in the Department of Education, they grab them. So you find that now, the reason they get elected and they canvass to be elected as office bearers is to serve themselves, positions in the department and all that. And I'm glad that now it has come to this state that now the ANC is losing power or has lost power, because I don't think their influence is going to be much. Because now they have to talk to other parties when it comes to positions. It's not going to be free for all for them and their families and their friends.
Sure.
It's going to be very, very hard. And I hear in KZN, there's already a union for teachers under the banner of the MK, which is very, 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 very good. It's very good. It's going to be war. It's going to be a tough battle for them to do as they please, as they used to do in the Department of Education and in other spaces. So I wish other unions like the EFF and the DA could come up with their own unions to counter the influence of COSATU, which has in many cases corrupted the department. And as they grab all that is there in the department for themselves and their friends. Thank you, Stephen.
All right, Ndlovu, thank you. Interesting points there. Belongs to SADU. Very critical of unions, though. I do understand that. All right, a lot more to come. We'll talk about WhatsApp. The future of WhatsApp really will affect you, I'm telling you, in the next little while. You're with SAFM leading the conversation. Good morning, 8 o'clock.
In our top stories, NUM and Petra Diamonds sign a 5-year wage deal, and Jabulani Khumalo informed he may not attend Parliament's first sitting. Good morning. The National Union of Mine Workers has signed a 5-year wage agreement with mining company Petra Diamonds. The agreement is an extension of the 2021-2024 wage deal between the parties. The wage increase is set to kick in on the 1st of next month and continue to the 30th of June 2029. NUM Chief Negotiator at Petra Diamonds, Masibulele Naki.
The NUM signed an offer of 6%, and in the last 2 years it will be 6.5%, which is the 5-year agreement. So this offer is also equivalent to the industrial offers that are offered by mining currently. As I indicated, that it was not an easy negotiation, it was tough negotiations, and only NUM was in the negotiations, no other union. So we delivered to our members. We believe our members will be happy.
The Secretary to Parliament, Xolile George, has written to expelled MK founder Jabulani Khumalo, informing him that he may not attend Parliament's first sitting on Friday, as he is no longer a member of the party which initially nominated him. George indicates he is in possession of correspondence from the MK party to Khumalo, which outlines the internal organizational processes followed, notifying him of his removal from its parliamentary list. Khumalo had earlier written to the Parliamentary Secretary indicating his attendance of Friday's ceremony, despite the MK party indicating its 58 members would not attend Parliament's first proceedings due to its unhappiness with the election results. More witnesses are expected to take the stand in the trial of Sibusiso and Lerato Mahlangu, a Shoshanguve couple accused of murdering Lerato's ex-boyfriend and the father of a child, Sibusiso Sitebe, in 2022. The state alleges the deceased was invited to the couple's home, where he was allegedly attacked by the husband. The pair allegedly made it seem it was Mahlangu who had died in the house fire and not Sitebe, so they could claim 500,000 Rand life insurance cover. Pumzile Mlangeni reports.
The trial set down for 3 weeks has entered its second week, with Captain Fenwell Molefe taking the stand. Molefe testified he managed to get a verbal confession out of Sibusiso Mahlangu while detained at the Temba police station. He claims Mahlangu told him he killed and doused Sitebe with petrol before setting him alight as he thought he was an intruder. Mahlangu, however, denies this. His sister Elizabeth Mahlangu told the court of the family's shock when they learned he was alive. They could not identify his corpse after the fire because they were told his wife Lerato had already done so. More witnesses, including the police, family and neighbors, are expected to be called.
The Congress of Traditional Leaders, Controlesa, has raised concerns over the health and safety of initiates amid extreme cold weather conditions with snowfall in the Eastern Cape. The province has recently been battered by extremely cold weather and floods. Controlesa Secretary General Zolani Mkiva says preparations have gone through almost 3 to 4 months ahead of the season.
But the fact that the winter has become even more harsher, we have told the surgeons as well as the caregivers, including those that are responsible for monitoring, that they must do everything necessary to ensure the safety of the initiates during this season. One thing that made us to highlight that is the fact that there are also the recent floods in the provinces like the Eastern Cape, and therefore we had to ensure that they look into every detail, including the appropriate location.
At least 38 migrants from the Horn of Africa have died after their boat capsized off the coast of Yemen. Survivors have told rescuers the vessel, which was carrying around 250 people, sank due to strong winds. Fishermen have rescued dozens of people, but many more are missing. The BBC's Yusuf Taha reports.
The search continues for nearly 100 passengers who are still missing. Local authorities in Rudum, east of Aden, said that the migrants, who are mostly from Ethiopia, use Yemen as a transit point to reach rich Gulf states. The International Organization for Migration said that since 2021, the number of migrants arriving every year in Yemen from the Horn of Africa has increased threefold to nearly 100,000.
Recapping the top story, the National Union of Mine Workers has signed a 5-year wage agreement with mining company Petra Diamonds. The agreement is an extension of the 2021-2024 wage deal between the parties. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines is soccer action tonight. Despite a commendable performance against Nigeria, Bafana must win against Zimbabwe to keep their World Cup hopes alive. And in rugby, the Bulls director Jake White calls for Leinster's clash a dress rehearsal for the Springbok series against Ireland next month. We'll have the details just before 8:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, Joburg's M3 stays really heavy this morning. Crash delays going south just towards Linksfield Road. So big queue coming down from Alex. And then northbound still backlogging heavily out of Germiston and Alberton up to a crash on the ramp to the N12 East at the Galuli's interchange as well. Durban having a really tough morning in the traffic, particularly routes that feed in or run through Spaghetti Junction. So you've got a really big queue from the cement factory moving up through Spaghetti Junction into the roadworks at Westwood Mall. Behind that, the N3 queues heavily from the M13 Paradise Valley at Pinetown. The M7's way back up the road into Queensborough. That's going bluffbound. You've got problems getting off that M7 into the N2, and then problems with the roadworks down at Bel Air and Wakesley. Also the M4 anyway out of Durban towards Mhlanga. There's quite a big backlog there as well, making your way from Blue Lagoon through to Virginia Airport. Alternatively, the Mhlanga Rocks Drive route looking heavy with diverting pressures. Cape Town, if you're coming out of Durbanville this morning, the Durban Road down towards the Rosendale area, very heavy, and a lot of traffic on Route 1, queuing from Platte Cliff Hill, effectively, right through to the elevated freeway and the foreshore. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 after 8, good morning, you with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. All right, much more to come. We'll speak more about the racism we've seen in Spanish football. It's really been incredible. Phrases that, I don't even want to use for descriptive purposes. Very, very difficult. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We'll talk about tuberculosis, and there's a new test that's being brought in for TB, which will hopefully limit the amount of time it takes to determine what kind of TB you would have. That's a huge advance. And then also WhatsApp. I mean, how many times a day, how many hours of your day do you think you spend on WhatsApp? I mean, I probably spend most of my life on WhatsApp. It's just always open in some way, shape or form. Just sort of takes over your life. We'll talk about that from 8:30. Good morning. You know the number, 086 000 2032 at 7 after 8.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Well, for the first time, people have been convicted of breaking the law for directing racist abuse at a footballer in Spain. It's 3 Valencia fans. They've been sentenced for abusing the footballer, the Brazilian footballer, Vinicius Jr. Now, Vinicius Jr. has suffered so much of this abuse. People have chanted in different ways. They've compared him to a particular animal. They've done all sorts of things that just does not happen to white football fans. And for a very long time, it seemed that the officials in Spain were doing nothing about it. Even the country where Vinicius comes from, Brazil, eventually got very, very angry. Well, let's find out a bit more about it. Nkululeko Nkewu is the co-founder of Idiski Media, football expert, sporting expert. Nkululeko, good morning.
Morning, Stephen. Morning to your listeners as well.
This has been going on for years, and Vinicius has really suffered for a very long time. I mean, he's not the only one, but he's got a very high profile, and in a way, he's had to really deal with this. Why has it taken so long for Spain to act? I mean, they just give the impression that racism is fine in Spain.
Yeah, it's been happening for a very long time. I remember there was a Barcelona right back, Dani Alves. There was a match in particular that I can't get out of my mind where he was taking a corner and he had bananas thrown at him. Oh. And in a moment of genius, to sort of raise the profile of what was happening, he actually picked it up and ate it, and that was years ago. And it's been happening and it's been allowed to happen in Spain and a lot of other European countries as well. It's been looked at almost like there's a blurred line between the banter that happens or the intimidation that happens against the best teams of the opposition that visit your stadium. But whenever it's a black player, it crosses that line of intimidating them, booing them whenever they have the ball, so as to maybe affect their performance. And then it crosses the line to always being racial when it comes to black players, which is when all else fails, whenever you boo a best player on the opposition team, but it doesn't affect their performance when all else fail, we know historically that if we throw in monkey chants and would throw a banana. It perhaps because some players have Samuel Eto'o there in Spain has threatened to leave a pitch, and some players they would tell the referee that I want to leave, which means that to some degree the racists in the stands would know that booing doesn't work, whistling doesn't work. They usually do this anyway to the best players of the visiting team. But when it's black players of the visiting teams who are the best players, they know that if it doesn't work, then they will start being racist. So there was that blurred line, and the Europeans would always say that, no, even the Italians would say this, that no, we're not racist, but we're trying to do anything to intimidate them so that he doesn't perform well against my team at our stadium, because they boo the white players too. But whenever it goes to the black players, they go one step further, and they would blur the line between intimidation and booing and being outright racist. And this was being reported all over the world. I remember I saw an article from the New York Times. It was a global story that was reported yesterday about those 3 young men who've been arrested, who've been sentenced rather, and they've also been given a stadium ban for 3 years. And I thought, okay, cool. So we are moving in some direction. And Vinicius, to your point initially, he complained about this, and he actually cried in a press conference complaining about the fact that this takes too long. And he didn't believe that this was going to happen. He hasn't commented yet on the story, but he, at some point when it happened last year, it happened in May 2023, which was over a year ago, he said nothing is going to happen to these people. So at least now there is a precedent that's being set that 9 months sentenced in jail, and you are banned from going to any stadium in the La Liga competition for 3 years as well. So that's not bad. That's a step in the right direction.
I mean, I remember. So I mean, this has happened in other countries in Europe, right? John Barnes suffered this playing football in England in the 1988. And in fact, I've just been reminded there was another incident with what he did with a banana. He sort of did a very clever back heel back into the crowd, right? And Britain, to its credit, I suppose, realised it had a problem, took a long time, and started to deal with it. You have the kick racism out of football, which you see actually on most football jerseys in the Premier League. Spain, I mean, what happened to John Barnes was 1988. Okay, I was in Standard 5. You know, I mean, Spain is so far behind. I mean, they just don't get it.
It's not that they're far behind, really. I don't want to play any devil's advocate here. I don't want our players to be racially abused. It is something that happens every now and then, and it's not nice when it happens. You see, Stephen, there's something that's bubbling on the other undercurrent, and this is partly the reason why this has happened. Part of what finances football are TV rights and broadcast rights, and the La Liga and the English Premier League and all the top 5 leagues in Europe, the Bundesliga in Germany, they're trying to make as much money as possible by being a global sport that is watched by every country across the globe. If South Africa is watching, that means DSTV or SABC is paying millions, if not billions, for that year in particular. So these countries need to be seen to be welcoming to all parts of the globe, because they are playing a game, especially the La Liga and the English Premier League. They are trying to one-up-men each other by attracting the best players in the world. Kylian Mbappe has now joined the La Liga, for example, who is arguably the best player in the world, if not Erling Haaland. So those two, the one is playing in England and the other one has now joined Real Madrid in the La Liga. So part of the appeal to having a league that is viable as a global sporting spectacle from the TV rights perspective is to make sure that this black player that is known as Kylian Mbappe from France, who was of African origin or descent, is not going to have the same problem that Vinicius Jr. has had. Therefore, we can be able to attract all the best players globally. That's why we need to be seen to be taking action. So part of why England has had to accelerate their rooting out of racism within their stadiums was that can we attract the best Brazilian players? If we're not creating an enabling environment for them to come and perform, then we will not be able to sell our global rights to all the countries in the world. We need to attract Brazil because there's a huge population there. We need to attract India that has 1.4 billion people. We need to be seen to be a hospitable environment for people in Asia because China and India have almost half the world's population, those two countries alone. So that's why we're now seeing some sort of acceleration in dealing with these cases. And I hope that this doesn't repeat itself because the La Liga and the English Premier League are playing a game where one is trying to be a global dominator in the football sphere and they're trying to make as much money as possible. And perhaps as a byproduct for that, we are seeing now them taking better steps in dealing with racists. And now, at least with sentencing and stadium bans, we hope that less of this will happen. Of course, I don't even bank on them, curing this for good, but at least they are seen to be doing the right things.
I mean, the Football League can surely do more, and quite a lot more, I would think. I mean, this is a reflection, I'm afraid to say, on Spanish society in many ways. I mean, the Brazilian government, this is one of their citizens, was furious.
Yeah, absolutely. They should be furious. And Spain is going to have to deal with this. They have they have 2 or 3 young men who are now black playing for their national team. I watched them over the weekend. Lamine Yamal is of African descent. He plays for Barcelona. He's going to be a star. He's an emerging star and is black. They're going to have to deal with that in their national team. And you saw in the stands, actually, it's as if there's some PR that's happening. You saw in the stands in the last game that they played over the weekend where they're showing young Spanish children with the jerseys of these young black players. Lamine Yamal, Nico Williams is another one who plays for Athletic Bilbao, is black. So the Spaniards are going to have to deal with the fact that they have black players now in their national team. The other young superstar was Ansu Fati. He's also black, of African descent as well. He used to play for Barcelona, is now at Brighton. So that's also another thing that's bubbling under, where they're going to have to deal with the fact that even their national team, is filled with Spanish players who are of African descent. And when they don't perform, they should not be scapegoated as it's because of these black players that we are no longer the Spain that we are, because that's also another problem that also happens in England, which was highlighted yesterday. I was reading about it, that whenever England loses, for example, now it's becoming subtle. They use an image of a black player on the front pages of many publications. Bukayo Saka plays for Arsenal. They lost against Iceland on Friday, and Bukayo Saka only came in the second half. It was not his fault that they lost, but his picture was on 7 different publications in Spain. So that's the subtlety of racism, to scapegoat him, even though he never made a mistake. He created opportunities for his team. Raheem Sterling was another one who was always scapegoated because of the color of his skin. Even if he did not play in a game, when England loses, he will be on the front pages of all the publications, almost like a subtle dig at him, even though he had nothing to do with the negative performance. So that's another aspect of it. But the Spaniards and the Spanish La Liga and the Spanish FA are going to have to deal with this if they want to be seen as a hospitable environment. And what's also happening is that their emerging global superstars are now becoming black players. That's something else that they're going to have to be dealing with, because unfortunately in football, you become a superstar based on your performances, not based on the color of the skin.
And Nkululeko Nkewu, thank you, co-founder of Idiski Media. Really appreciate the time. 18 minutes after 8.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
Well, there have been various developments in the last little while in treating tuberculosis, and it is a huge problem still in our society. Many people lose their lives to it. One of the biggest problems is how long it takes to be on treatment. If you are diagnosed with TB or drug-resistant TB or extremely drug-resistant TB or multi-drug-resistant TB, what happens is it can take 6 months of continual actual treatment before you are no longer with tuberculosis. Some of the times you have to end up in quarantine as well. There are now some developments around improving the treatment. Professor Norbert Njeka is the head of the TB program at the National Department of Health. Professor Njeka, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me.
So you have a new test that will be able to show if the genetic makeup of the virus has changed. How does this new test work?
Yeah, thank you so much. So when we suspect someone has tuberculosis, we use TB-NAT to diagnose TB. That is nuclear acidic amplification test, which means we use the the DNA of the microbe, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. We amplify that, and then we find the TB. Now, we then continue to do further tests because your initial test will only say whether you got TB or not. Number two, whether your TB has resistance to rifampicin or not, which is rifampicin is our strongest drug to treat TB. Now, once we start TB treatment, let's say if you got rifampicin resistance, we do further resistance tests, and we target then the strongest drug among the second-line drugs, which is bedaquiline and linezolid. So the test I was referring to in the publication is the targeted next generation sequencing, which helps diagnose resistance to bedaquiline early enough instead of waiting for 8 weeks or more. Yes.
Okay, so someone gets on the right treatment more quickly. That's what this means.
That is what it means. So it helps because if you have bedaquiline resistance, and we only know that you have rifampicin resistance without knowing whether you have bedaquiline resistance, the current treatment could lead to further amplification of your bedaquiline resistance, and you may not do well, jeopardizing your chance for another treatment option. So early diagnosis is critical in TB diagnosis, so that you get the treatment that is effective for the disease that you have.
If I remember correctly, and Professor, you're the professor, not me, when it comes to tuberculosis, but some of the drug-resistant forms of TB that we've seen, the strains, they've come when people have not been taking the correct drugs. Is that right? Or they haven't been taking them often enough?
Yes, that is correct. When you interrupt treatment, and then you take it again, you interrupt, it is a problem. Treatment interruption is a problem. It creates resistance.
Sure.
Now, with bedaquiline, that is even worse because when you take bedaquiline and some other drugs, like we give it with pretomanid, linezolid in most instances, if you stop everything, let's say today, within the next 2-3 days, all your linezolid, all your pretomanid is metabolized, is out of your body. Bedaquiline will stay like for another month,
right,
or more in your body, which means you've now theoretically fallen into what we call monotherapy. Monotherapy means you are being treated by one agent out of 3.
Okay.
So that is another way that leads to resistance as well.
Professor, where I'm going with this is, if you get more people onto the correct treatment earlier, will it slow the spread of drug-resistant TB because people will be getting the correct treatment rather than sort of waiting longer?
Exactly. When you get people on the right treatment, you are preventing the spread because they become non-infectious fast. And they cannot pass the disease to the other, to those they live with. So it is critical to cut the chain of transmission. To treat is to prevent.
Okay, tuberculosis has been we've done a lot to try and reduce the spread of tuberculosis. I always remember about 10 years ago reading somewhere that the incidence of tuberculosis in Pollsmoor prison was the same it had been about in Cape Town prisons a century before that. So around 1910 or so. I mean, very, very scary. And tuberculosis is very difficult to remove because it mutates, because of how it spreads, because of what happens. Do you think we're making any progress at all? I mean, it's very difficult, and I mean, you're in charge of it. It's very difficult to stop, very hard disease. Do you think we're making any progress at all?
Yeah, we do. We're making progress. If you look at the Global TB Report or other authoritative publications, you'll see that we've been having a prevalence, and I mean an incidence of more than 500,000 people getting TB every year in South Africa. Now we reduced that to 280,000. So between 2015, when the NTB strategy was put in place by the World Health Organization, and we adhered to that because we also tend to benefit from that. From 2015 to 2022, we reduced incidence by 53%. So this is big, but we've not managed to reduce death rates by the target we had of 35% or so. We only reduced by 17%. And maybe what explains that is that a survey done 2 years ago by the World Health Organization indicates that 56% of TB patients in South Africa spend at least 20% of their annual income on TB-related expenses. Although diagnosis is free, treatment is free, but people have to buy food, they have to travel to clinics, hospitals, so it's really costly for them. That's what we call catastrophic cost. So we've done well in a way by bringing new drugs, improving cure rates and all that, but there's still a lot we need to do.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Norbert Njeka, as the head of the TB program in the Department of Health. Well, there's so much around tuberculosis, which is so important. So any progress, obviously, is to be applauded. Very, very difficult to deal with. Professor, thank you. Really appreciate the time. Coming up now to 27 minutes after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Bafana tonight.
Yes, let's hope they have what it takes to win. Coach Hugo Bruges is fired up, and with the Free State Stadium packed to the brim, our boys have all the support they need. It's going to be a tough match though, but if they bring their A game like they did against Nigeria, we could see a win tonight against Zimbabwe. Let's hear now from the Bafana coach, Hugo Bruges.
Therefore, we have to win tomorrow. And it will not be easy. Zimbabwe lost 2-0 against Lesotho, but the first goal was not a chance. It was a mistake of the goalkeeper. The second was a nice goal, and they had a third chance, and that was all. For the rest, it was Zimbabwe who was the better team. And it's a tough team. It's always difficult for South Africa to play against Zimbabwe, so it will not be different tomorrow.
You can catch the match live on SABC Sport. It'll kick off at 6 p.m. Elsewhere, 3 Valencia fans have been handed 8-month prison sentences after pleading guilty to racially insulting Real Madrid's forward Vinicius Jr. in the first conviction for racism-related cases in professional soccer in Spain. The fans, whose names were not released, won't be allowed to enter soccer stadiums for 2 years and will have to pay for the court proceedings. They were detained after a Spanish league match between Real Madrid and Valencia at the Mestalla Stadium in May 2023. The match was briefly stopped after Vinicius was insulted. The incident sparked an outrage of support for Vinicius, who's black, and set off widespread call for action by Spanish authorities and society in general. Earlier, Stephen spoke to Nkululeko Nkewu from Idiski Times, who shed light on the dire situation with regards to racism.
2 or 3 young men who are now black playing for their national team. I watched them over the weekend. Lamine Yamal is of African descent. He plays for Barcelona. He's going to be a star. He's an emerging star. And is black. They're going to have to deal with that in their national team. And you saw in the stands, actually, it's as if there's some PR that's happening. You saw in the stands in the last game that they played over the weekend where they're showing young Spanish children with the jerseys of these young black players. Lamine Yamal, Nico Williams is another one who plays for Athletic Bilbao. He's black.
That's Nkululeko Nkewu from Idiski Times speaking to Stephen earlier on Sunrise. Now, finally, the Bulls director of rugby, Jake White, has dubbed their United Rugby Championship semi-final clash with Leinster a dress rehearsal for the upcoming series between the Springboks and Ireland. Hosting the Irish province this Saturday at Loftus Versfeld, White is calling on fans from Pretoria and Johannesburg to come out in full force to make the home advantage count.
So they'll be coming here with a win and the whole squad that haven't had to play 80 minutes of attritional rugby. But, that's the nice thing about being here is no one really thinks we can beat Leinster like they didn't a couple of years ago, and we got it right. So, again, say to you, I wish that this goes out to all the public.
We'll bring you more sport here on SFM at around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. What's up with your WhatsApp? That's next to with SFM leading the conversation, 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, Professor of Politics Achunisa Grootes says members of the Umkhonto weSizwe party still have an opportunity to be sworn in after the first sittings of the National Assembly and the NCOP. The National Union of Mine Workers has signed a 5-year wage agreement with mining company Petra Diamonds. The agreement is an extension of the 2021-2024 wage deal between the parties. And the Congress of Traditional Leaders Controlesa has raised concerns over the health and safety of initiates amid extreme cold weather conditions with snowfall in the Eastern Cape. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Just a heads up, if you're driving out of Joburg through to Midrand, there's an operation on the ramps through Buccleuch to take you off the N3 North and the N1 North to go on to the N1 Midrand North, if you like. So big queues coming up from Alex on the N3 and from Randburg four ways. Pretty heavy queues as you approach that ramp off the N1 North, effectively onto the N1 North up to Midrand. The N3 still battling along southbound Alex down to Edenvale. That's a crash at Linksfield Road. And the N3 North has been a disaster this morning with heavy pressure out of Germiston, Alberton, all the way through Galulis. That's that collision that also happened much earlier this morning on the ramp off the N3 onto the N12. That traffic coming out of Germiston through Bedfordview stays heavy. Durban's had a thick and heavy traffic Tuesday this morning. Is still bad. The N2 from the M7 through Spaghetti Junction into the roadworks has been really badly backed up. More queues going up through towards Gateway on the N2 North. The N3 inbound from Paradise Valley from Pinetown all the way through to Spaghetti Junction stays super heavy. The M7 from Queensborough, if you're bluff-bound, some big queues down towards the N2 highway as well. A lot of complaints about Durban traffic, and a lot of that related to the roadworks that are going on. Cape Town, N1 into town, fairly slow this morning from around about N1 City to the foreshore area, and some lights are off on the N2 inbound at the Lisbeth Parkway off-ramp, so just expect a little bit of congestion as you come off the highway and sort of turn up to Salt River area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
28 minutes to 9. Good morning, you with SAFM. Time for your mediated conversation this morning. When you want to communicate with someone, what do you do and how do you do it? I'll bet in most cases you reach for your phone, you tap on the WhatsApp icon and you start typing. Have you ever wondered how many times a day you look at WhatsApp? As the tool has become more and more important, almost fundamental to our lives in some cases. I mean, what happens when it doesn't work? But it is provided for free. It comes from Meta, the company that brings you Facebook. It's now trying to create money for itself. Already you've seen this year on your WhatsApp screen a search function that takes you to Meta's artificial intelligence system. Now it appears WhatsApp is planning to introduce more functions that will allow people to advertise on the platform. For the moment, it seems they're doing it very, very slowly. So then what impact is WhatsApp having on our society? How important is it now? What changes are being made? First this morning, Siphumelele Zondi is a tech expert here at the SABC. He's a lecturer in the subject. He's also the presenter of a program that specializes in this on the SABC News Channel. Then, the impact that it is having on our society. William Bird is the director at Media Monitoring Africa. We've just come out of an election. I'm sure people were using WhatsApp for campaigning. And then the future of WhatsApp, will it ever face some kind of competition? Well, it already does, I suppose. Jan Vermeulen is the editor at mybroadband.co.za. We start then with, from the SABC, Siphumelele Zondi. Siphumelele, good morning, and thank you for your time.
Hello, thanks very much for inviting me, Stephen.
Firstly, we've seen several changes to WhatsApp in the last few years. What kind of changes is Meta trying to make? What's it really trying to do?
Well, when Meta bought, then it was Facebook Inc., bought WhatsApp about 10 or so years ago, it was clear that at a point they would eventually lead to monetization and how they'd make money from the platform. And they did start that by basically blasting messages to some of their users. You'd find that certain stores would collect the information like the phone number you'd given to them, and they would create a group, and then they would blast those messages to some of their customers, but there'd be an opt-out option from those messages. So this new feature that they're testing now is basically in line with that, where they are still trying to figure out how to best leverage from WhatsApp, because Meta does own Facebook and Instagram as well, and we see ads all the time on Facebook, we see ads all the time on Instagram. They make a lot of money from that. WhatsApp has about 2.7 billion users worldwide, but it's not really making that much money for them, and they're trying to figure out how to leverage on those 2.7 billion users that they have, and about 100 million messages that are doing the rounds worldwide on the platform.
I imagine WhatsApp does cost something for them to run. They've got to keep all of those servers going.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because as you say, they need to keep the server running. They need to allow the ability for us to use the platform, but it would largely then survive on the fact that there are other platforms that Meta does own. And yeah, that's why they basically need to start making money from the platform. And they have started sort of testing other things like the opt-out feature that I mentioned that stores have been using. Even stores here in South Africa have started using those platforms where you can be added onto what would seem like a group, and you get messages being sent to you, but you can then remove yourself from those messages.
There are surely other ways to make money apart from advertising. There could be a subscription model or a premium subscription model. I mean, I use WhatsApp all the time, and it is free. All I need is data, which I pay for. I pay money to someone else for the data. But there must be other options. I realize if they had to go a subscription model, and there were times when it looked like they'll do that, even a yearly fee of $10. I mean, it might be a lot of money to us, but a lot of people would be able to afford that.
But when you think about the value proposition from the get-go, is that this was a free service. This was encrypted. Initially, you could only have conversations with your friends without any outside influence from those conversations. Initially, again, there was a bit of reluctance on even people discussing business and non-personal stuff on WhatsApp. The pandemic changed that for a lot of people, where work started to, because people started to work remotely, and then work started to be discussed quite a lot on WhatsApp. So I believe that some things are at inception, and what the value proposition was at inception. This was a platform like other platforms before it, like BIS, for example. Those who would think back to like the years 2010, 2011, when BlackBerry was a thing, and WhatsApp came at the back of that as a platform you could use to chat with your friends. So now when it comes to it being a pay-for platform, you think of new services where a lot of people are still resistant. So people might not agree to what they hadn't initially agreed on in the beginning in terms of that payment. And so they need a fast method, and advertising would be that. And also advertisers would have potential of reaching billions and billions of people worldwide. Whereas if you are talking about something like a subscription platform, for example, then you might not be reaching all those billions, or potential of reaching all those billions of people, because only a few might want to subscribe.
Okay, if they offer advertising, is there a risk people would stop using WhatsApp? There aren't many competitors, but there are some. And this gets us to a slightly different question in your space, the sort of tech space, if I can call it that, where scale matters. So people are on WhatsApp because everyone else is on WhatsApp. Yes, some are on Signal, some are on Telegram. But in my world, everyone's on WhatsApp, and therefore I stay on WhatsApp. Even if I don't like it, I have no choice. And doesn't that mean that in a way WhatsApp has something inbuilt that protects it from competition?
Oh, totally. Because when you think, there was a time people were thinking about Telegram, for example. Remember, that big Telegram download that happened, and it seemed like it wasn't as safe as WhatsApp, and that's what WhatsApp has inbuilt in it. The fact that it's safer than other platforms. It can't really be infiltrated that easily, and the businesses that are going to be a part of it would obviously have to be vetted, and they would have to have paid, and they're using your phone number to get to you. So there's some protections. But South Africa also has something called the Protection of Personal Information Act as well. So that's going to be interesting, especially when it comes to us on what needs to be done in order for them to bypass POPIA, because again, that would mean opt-in, which, as you mentioned earlier, could be similar to a subscription service, because you need to agree that you want this advertising to come to you. But it's going to be interesting on whether they start taking away certain features if you don't want advertising to come to you. But in terms of safety, in terms of the encryption that they've promised people, because this works with AI. So it's not to say they take your phone number and share it with other individuals. It's like their Instagram, it's like their Facebook, where their AI figures out what you are interested in, and then it's what you're interested in that then gets advertised to you. But the trick would be that phone number now is linked to your Instagram, linked to your Facebook, which means there could be cross pollination of content, where you'd find that because they have your phone number, they figure out that you are the same person on their other platforms, and therefore the same advertising can be brought to this particular platform. It's going to be interesting on what happens with the Protection of Personal Information Act, especially in the case of South Africa.
Okay, but I mean, with end-to-end encryption, even if they're advertising, no one can read messages. Is that still the case?
Basically, that's what it is. It's AI that's figuring out who you are, what you are interested in, and no third party will be able to read those messages. So it's basically a machine that will figure out who you are.
I've always wondered who would figure out who I am. Siphumelele Zondi, thank you very much indeed. Tech expert here at the SABC, presents Network on the SABC News Channel, as well as senior lecturer in the subject. 18 minutes to 9, you're with SFM. Continue your mediated conversation this morning around changes to WhatsApp. William Bird is the director at Media Monitoring Africa. William, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Thanks for having me on the program.
We've seen WhatsApp really become not just something to message people with, not just for family groups or even small work groups, but in some strange way, it's becoming a sort of mass media tool, kind of a social network that only people inside certain groups can see.
Yeah, and it's being used, for that. You'll find that people use it for good and for bad. It's useful in a residence group to know if it's just you that doesn't have power, or if it's everyone that's out of power or water or whatever the issue is, so there are all sorts of very nice practical things that you can do with those kinds of groups, but there are also people that use that for far more sinister purposes and to spread, messages of hatred. So there's currently a case in the Eastern Cape taken by the South African Human Rights Commission about a group who used WhatsApp in order to spread, homophobia, essentially. And so, it does have that power where it's a kind of closed group, but it's also quite public at the same time, which is quite an interesting kind of dilemma to deal with.
Obviously, it's a very useful campaigning tool. I mean, that is clear. We've just come out of an election. Do we know if people use it to campaign much in this election? And I mean, the end-to-end encryption makes it hard to know what's really going on.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it difficult to know where that goes on. And where the problem comes is that it's very hard for researchers and people that are looking at this stuff to actually have any idea of what's going on. So those that are sending the messages, they have some idea of what they're doing and of how far it's going. So if you are sending on those channels, then you should have an idea of your hit rates, how many people viewed it and where it went. So political parties used it for that kind of thing. But if you're outside of that group, and you're talking about a group that could be, a few hundred or a few thousand, outside of that group, it's very hard. And then once you start spreading things that are the wrong kind of messages, so messages that are either inciting violence or disinformation, for example, then it becomes very difficult because it's really hard to track that. Now, what's interesting about this latest development, of course, is that it shows that Meta actually does have and will have a much better idea of what's going on. So the counter for me would be to say, if you're going to do this and use this platform in this way, you then need to make sure that you make those things transparent and accessible to see where bad messaging and things that are actually undermining democracy are taking place. Because if you're just doing the one in order to monetize, you're going to just lead to more problems unless you're bringing in a level of transparency and you bring in a level of accountability for how you're suddenly starting to use this platform in a very different way.
Just to understand this at a sort of very high level, for example, after in Britain the Brexit vote, there was a referendum. Britain voted by a very small margin to leave the European Union. And people afterwards had very long conversations about the role of the media in that, because you could look at what the media had done and you could look at the result. We've just had an election, for example, where we know what the result is. We know what the formal media did. We know what people were doing on Twitter, because you can assess that. It may take you a long time. You may need a lot of resources, but you can do it. If no one knows what's happening on WhatsApp groups, then no one knows how we got to the result that we did. And I find that quite frightening, because it means that societies will make decisions and no one will know what people are basing those decisions on. And that makes things very unpredictable. Now, I'm a little worried for our society. I'm much more worried, for example, the United States. Many people there have WhatsApp. It's not as high a penetration as here, but they've got a big election coming up. We will not be able to assess what information people are making their decisions on.
Well, exactly. But now, ironically, this tool, in order to make money, will give them far better insight into that, right? So one of the things that you've always had a challenge with the platforms is when you look at these, they say, oh, well, we can't see what messages are on there, so we don't know, we can't tell you. But with this tool, using AI to then match your Instagram and your other things, and bear in mind, it's not, they talk about it as that closed garden, but we know that if you talk about, buying a new car with your friend, that the next thing you'll be getting adverts on Facebook, on Google, on all of the platforms that you use for buying cars. Now what they're saying is they're basically going to integrate WhatsApp into that. So the moment you start to then get that kind of level of integration, the platforms will know what's going on, which means that we should be able to understand and get access to the kind of political messaging that is actually taking place across WhatsApp. And so even though they can't read the individual messages of those things, they will know, for example, that if the Republicans are suddenly have a big campaign on Meta and they start targeting particular numbers and they look at the take-up of those and they see what kind of things emerge from that then they can get a fair idea of where things are actually going on WhatsApp, even if they don't see those actual messages. And that's where this then becomes potentially a tool that can give, even people that believe in democracy some kind of better access and understanding of what's going on. And that's why I'm saying if they do this to make money, they need to make sure that there's a concomitant level of transparency and accountability over this new ability of theirs.
Do you believe Meta, Facebook, Zuckerberg are committed actually to trying to stop fake news, or is it a sort of half-hearted commitment like we've seen on other platforms?
No, because fundamentally the social media platforms, not only him, let's be clear, make money from this kind of thing. You've had people like Andrew Tate who became massively famous and made a lot of money by promoting misogyny and all sorts of other horrible deeds. So it's not, they made money from being a horrible person, basically, and running counter to basic rights of dignity and equality for all. That can't be a good thing. So when the only thing that's going to make them behave in a manner that is accountable and transparent is when the state decides to get involved and say you have to be accountable and transparent. So that's why we need the state to then intervene in these things and say you need to make sure that this stuff is open and accessible for people to be able to carry out research, independent third-party research. And to varying degrees, they've done that, right? They've done that a lot more, not so much in South Africa, but certainly in the States. There are universities that have access to much bigger amounts of metadata. You know, we were fighting for them to do that and open up that data for us in South Africa to be able to allow us and various research teams to look at it in the lead up to our elections. They're not going to do it because they want to. They're going to do it because they are compelled to.
William Bird, thank you, Director at Media Monitoring Africa. In a moment, the future of WhatsApp and messaging. Jan Vermeulen, editor at mybroadband.co.za.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still a couple of very heavy traffic highways across Joburg this morning. The N3 going south, the collision scene at Linksfield Road still there, so delays coming through from Alex into Edenvale. And the N3 north, that collision that we've been talking about all morning, N3 north ramp to the N12 at Galulis. There really is a very heavy backlog coming out of Alberton and Germiston up that N3 into Bedford as you approach that off-ramp. Also, there's some traffic delays coming in on the N12 and R24 routes into the interchange as well. Also, delays on the M1 and N3 routes heading north into Buccleuch for connections onto the M1 Midrand. If you've got to get through to Midrand, expect some delays on both of those highways. Durban, which has had a really busy morning around Spaghetti Junction, things are starting to calm down, but the N3 inbound from Paradise Valley through 4 Level down towards Sherwood stays heavy. The N2 south into 4 Levels busy, and the M7 that is queuing as you come down from Queensborough down towards the N2 highway. That has also been a very busy run through this morning. Cape Town, the N1 from N1 City through to the elevated freeway to the city centre stays busy. The M5 is queuing from around about sort of Crombourne Road territory up through Rondebosch to the N2. And if you're on the N2 off-ramping at Lisbech Parkway, there's no traffic lights as you go under the N2 bridge and turn up towards Salt River. So a little bit of extra weight to get through there. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right. Right? However, I do have some left-brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB. A division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
The Trellidor Ultimate Big Blue Sale is now on. Get amazing discounts on the best security South Africans trust. With over 50 franchises across the country, you can always find a security expert near you. So call 0861 Trellidor or visit trellidor.co.za today. Terms and conditions apply.
Neighbors don't always get along, especially when they're after the same goal. Bafana are looking for nothing but victory, while the Warriors are confident they will achieve maximum points during their Group C clash. This is the FIFA World Cup African qualifiers, accompanied by high levels of emotion, tension, and drama. Catch the Southern African Derby, South Africa versus Zimbabwe, on Tuesday 11 June at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
Continuing your mediated conversation around WhatsApp, the way in which it is changing. Jan Vermeulen's the editor at My Broadband. It's 7 minutes to 9. Jan, good morning.
Good morning.
If we look at WhatsApp now, it has some competitors, Signal and Telegram, but it's still dominant. How's it been able to keep that dominance? Is it just because it was kind of first?
Yes, it was in the best possible position to take ownership of the mobile instant messaging space when BlackBerry messed up. So that's usually how these platform-based businesses work. MySpace, when MySpace failed and Friendster failed, Facebook was ready in the wings to step into that gap. Mobile instant messaging was the same. And there's now plenty of competitors waiting for WhatsApp to mess up so that they can step into the gap as well.
Okay, and then keeping that dominance, no one's come along with better features or better anything, really. And once you get to a certain scale, your dominance kind of stays.
Yes, inertia is just a major force when it comes to platform-based businesses like this. You alluded to it in one of your earlier interviews during this conversation, which is that network effect. Like, you go where everybody else is. And, while there will be, some of us who, are a little alternative and, go to Signal and Telegram and whatever else, most people will just go for the simplest option where most of the people that they want to communicate with are, or in fact, all of the people they want to communicate with are. And that's what WhatsApp offers. And when you've got that network effect in full swing, then that gives you a kind of natural lock-in, and so that's what WhatsApp currently has going for it, but it's not guaranteed.
The thing that WhatsApp did was that it was cross-platform, right? So Android, PC, it was Apple, everything. You could basically use it. Would anything that were ever to remove it have to be the same? It would have to also be cross-platform, yes. Otherwise it wouldn't work. And this is really important because it basically links everybody, even though they're using very different systems that can sometimes compete very strongly against each other.
Yes, absolutely. And that was BBM's big failure, was that it failed to launch on competing platforms. And so, people on BlackBerry were already using WhatsApp to communicate, at least in South Africa, to communicate with people on Android and iOS. Now, iPhone has iMessage, and and that is only the Apple ecosystem, so that's not a worthwhile or a legitimate contender. But like even the mobile operators would like to, I think, have another swing at this with new technologies that are coming through in SMS, which just got announced yesterday, are being incorporated into Apple's messaging app finally. So there'll be rich text communication now between Android and iPhone for the first time ever. And so there's all kinds of things happening like that behind the scenes that could be competitors to WhatsApp. But absolutely, it has to be cross-platform, and ideally, never mind just working between cell phones. This needs to run across every device where WhatsApp is, and it needs to be a drop-in replacement for WhatsApp. WhatsApp's another thing that made WhatsApp really strong is it was a drop-in replacement for SMS. You literally link your phone number to it, and it works like SMS.
Okay, SMS. I think the last message I sent to everybody on SMS that wasn't just an advertising message was, "Why are you not on WhatsApp?" Exactly. SMS really gonna, mount a fight back against WhatsApp? That's incredible.
The only way for that to work is for the cost can't go back to what it was, or what it still is. What network operators still charge for SMSs in South Africa. It'll have to go to sort of the more northern hemisphere model, where you get these massive SMS bundles, or SMS is effectively free. They can charge a nominal amount for it because obviously they have to make money off of it, but they'll have to figure out another way to make huge amounts of money on it, like they have been SMS. And then the technology is called RCS. That's the tech that now can run between Android and iPhones. And the next thing is that has to have the same level or the same depth of features that you can get on WhatsApp and Telegram, which it really can't right now. But this is, I'm just kind of saying, this is something that they have been working on. They are very upset that they even gave up the mobile instant messaging market to WhatsApp back in 2010, 2011. And so they'd love to have an opportunity to take it back. But for that to happen, WhatsApp has to mess up big time. And one of the missteps it can make is with this advertising thing.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, that people have limits, right? And at some point, if they push too far, the closest they've come is when, people sort of started looking at maybe moving to Signal and Telegram, and there was that push. But that's the closest they've ever come. But the space is so competitive that one big mistake or a series of big mistakes, Elon, will cause people to leave your platform.
Yes, and even as Twitter has shown us, even pretty massive mistakes doesn't obliterate your network advantage immediately. It's kind of like a seesaw. It's slowly coming down, and then all of a sudden, bang, the market switches. And that's exactly what happened to BBM back in 2011.
Thank you very much indeed, Jan Vermeulen, the editor at mybroadband.co.za. Really appreciate the time. My thanks also to William Bird, Director at Media Monitoring Africa, starting us off today. Siphumelele Zondi, tech expert here at the SABC, also, of course, presents a program on the SABC News channel, a lecturer in the subject. Well, that is how WhatsApp has changed and is changing, and what could come next. We're changing. Kathy is next. We'll be back with you tomorrow for Mdu, Melissa, Stanza, and Paul, myself. Look after yourself. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
In our top stories, political analyst speaks on MK party members taking their seats in Parliament, and NUM and Petra Diamonds sign a 5-year wage deal. Good morning. Professor of Politics at Unisa Grootes says members of Umkhonto we Sizwe party still have an opportunity to be sworn in after the first sittings of the National Assembly and the NCOP. The MK party has boycotted the first sittings expected to take place on Friday and Saturday, presided over by the Chief Justice. The National Assembly sitting is scheduled to take place on Friday morning, while the NCOP is expected to take place on Saturday. The party is challenging the 2024 election results outcome. The MK party is currently the third largest political party, which garnered 58 seats in the Assembly. Grootes says nothing disqualifies the MK members from taking their seats later.
It doesn't mean that they are completely excluded from Parliament or disqualified from Parliament. What they will not be able to do is that they will not be sworn in as members of Parliament with all the others. They will not be able to participate in the election of the President and of the Speaker, and also of the Deputy Speaker. But when they decide that they want to come back to Parliament, join Parliament, they can do so. They have been elected to it. Nothing disqualifies them for that. Then a judge will have to swear them in as members of Parliament, and once they've done that, then they will become part of the community of parliamentarians in the National Assembly.
The National Union of Mine Workers has signed a 5-year wage agreement with mining company Petra Diamonds. The agreement is an extension of the 2021-2024 wage deal between the parties. The wage increase is set to kick in on the 1st of next month and continue to the 30th of June 2029. NUM Chief Negotiator at Petra Diamonds, Masibulele Naki.
The NUM signed an offer of 6%, and in the last 2 years it will be 6.5%, which is the 5-year agreement. So this offer is also equivalent to the industrial offers that are offered by mining currently. As I indicated, that it was not an easy negotiation, it was tough negotiations, and only NUM was in the negotiations, no other union. So we delivered to